Chapter 202. When Feng Bujue stepped into the inn, many people saw him, but no one recognized him. Therefore, no one paid much attention to him and the four people behind him. They thought they were a bunch of second- or third-tier factions' disciples who did not know the rules and had barged into the inn. At that time, Si Yanran's attention was focused on the conversation between Gong Sun Qian and Ji Tong. After all, she was a coward, and she was afraid that her mistake would be seen by others, so she listened to every word nervously. Si Yanran's seat was facing the entrance of the inn, so when she saw someone walk in from the corner of her eye, she inadvertently glanced in that direction. It would have been fine if she didn't glance, but when she did, she was so shocked that she stood up, knocking the stool under her to the ground. Gong Sun Qian felt something was wrong, so he stopped his conversation with Ji Tong. He turned his head and saw his wife staring in the direction of the inn's entrance with a look of surprise. He followed Si Yanran's gaze and asked, "My wife, what's wrong?" "It's them." Si Yanran pointed at Feng Bujue and the rest who had just walked in and said, "They are the mysterious people who killed Wang Ao last night." At that moment, the atmosphere in the whole inn changed. Several seconds ago, the various martial artists had ignored the appearance of these five, but now it was as if they had seen some important characters. All their eyes were focused on Feng Bujue's group. However, no matter how the group of seniors sized them up, the five of them still looked ordinary and mediocre. In terms of appearance, they were quite handsome young men. Their clothes were very ordinary, and they didn't seem to have any weapons on them. There wasn't the slightest trace of fear on their faces, but they also didn't have the shrewd and ruthless demeanor of someone who had been in Jianghu for a long time. The most puzzling thing was that their movements didn't seem like they were people who practiced martial arts. "Humph. So, it's you guys." Feng Bujue heard that and added coldly. As he spoke, he led his teammates forward. The table in Chong Lin's lobby was not a square table but a small round table. Each table could fit 6 people at most. Feng Bujue came to an empty table and sat down. After his teammates took their seats, he looked at a waiter who was far away. He snapped his fingers and beckoned for the waiter to come over. The people there had seen many things before, but they had never seen someone snap their fingers. As the saying goes, it takes 2 hands to clap, but today they saw someone make a weird gesture with one hand, and it made a crisp snap. Although this could not be said to be a great ability, everyone felt that this trick was rather novel in their hearts. Feng Bujue used this seemingly casual and simple method to leave a weird and frivolous first impression on these martial artists. The waiter was startled for 2 seconds before he walked over. Out of habit, he removed the cloth from his shoulder and started to wipe the table. At the same time, his other hand skillfully arranged a few teacups and poured tea for the guests. Dear guests, what would you like to order?" "Guest room," Feng Bujue said. "Oh, I'm so sorry." When the waiter said that, he had already finished the task of wiping the table and pouring the tea. He smiled apologetically. "You see, the inn has had quite a number of guests recently, and it's already full. How about you, move away?" Suddenly, a deep voice came from behind the waiter. The breath from the person's mouth hit the back of the waiter's neck. The waiter was spooked, and he quickly moved to the side. Instantly, Feng Bujue's eyes met with the person who spoke. It was a man in his 50s. His hair was gray, and his expression was slightly angry. Gong Sun Qian's face was quite unique. His brows were long, his nose high, his eyes low, his cheeks flat, his mouth narrow, and his jaw wide. When put together, he was not ugly, but he was very recognizable. "Senior, are you looking for me?" Feng Bujue asked calmly. Who's your senior?" Gong Sun Qian scoffed. Gong Sun Li and Si Yanran were standing on either side of the Thousand Dawn Spire's owner. Behind them, there were 2 disciples from the Thousand Dawn Spire. "I see." Feng Bujue heard this and slowly stood up. Other than Gong Sun Qian, everyone else from the Thousand Dawn Spire took a step back. Obviously, Si Yanran had already spread the word about the player's unpredictable combat power within the Thousand Dawn Spire. If she did not make the other party more powerful, then she would not be able to explain her escape. Furthermore, it would be very embarrassing. The atmosphere in the inn started to heat up. Many of the younger disciples who had little experience in the world were already excited. They hoped that the two parties would start fighting so that they could see for themselves how powerful Gong Sun Qian's Thousand Dawn divine skill was. Then, Feng Bujue changed his words and said, "What do you want from me?" As soon as he said this, the inn fell silent. It was as if a cold wind had blown through the hall. After being scolded, Gong Sun Qian did not know how to respond. After all, the other party did call him senior at first. It was he who objected to it. "You already know the answer." Gong Sun Qian pretended that he did not hear anything. He said directly, "Why did you kill my disciple on the street last night?" Feng Bujue did not react much after hearing this. His teammates looked like they were watching a show. They sipped their tea with relaxed expressions. "Oh, so he's your disciple." Feng Bujue looked at Si Yanran's face and then at Gong Sunli. He had already recognized this person as the square-faced man from last night. Si Yanran and Gong Sunli's eyes flashed, but they still looked very righteous. Si Yanran even said, "What's wrong? Today, in front of my husband, in front of the Thousand Dawn Spire, you don't dare to admit it?" Since she was trying to frame him, she naturally had to take advantage of any opportunity to say something similar to confuse the public. According to her logic, even if Feng Bujue denied it, he was still denying it. Feng Bujue was silent for 2 seconds. He quickly sorted out the identities and relationships of these people in front of him. He then replied, "Huh? I didn't come here to argue with you, but you came looking for me?" Just when the real culprit and his accomplice thought that he was going to tell the truth, Feng Bujue unexpectedly shouted at Gong Sun Qian, "Why wouldn't I admit it? That's right. I killed him. You have a problem with that?" When Gong Sunli and Si Yanran heard this, they did not know how to react. A few seconds later, they were shocked. "No way. He admitted it? And he admitted it so easily? Are you crazy?" While Gong Sun Qian was being scolded in the face, he said sincerely in his heart, "Fine. You have guts, fine. Since you admit it, there's no need to say anything else. Thousand Dawn Spire has no history with you, but you killed my people for no reason. Based on the rules of the martial world, I have to avenge my disciple." Before Gong Sun Qian could finish, Gong Sun Qian was interrupted. "Wait a minute." Feng Bujue yelled to interrupt him. "Who said I killed your people for no reason?" "Oh!" Gong Sun Qian's expression shifted. "You have a history with Wang Ao?" "No," Feng Bujue replied. "You have a history with Thousand Dawn Spire?" "No." "Humph. Then why did you kill him?" "He was harassing my wife," Feng Bujue said as he pointed his finger at passing rain. Gong Sun Qian was speechless. Not only him, Xiao Tan, Laughing Soul, and Atobi almost dropped their teacups on the table, but passing rain was calm. She still used that cold gaze to look at Feng Bujue like he owed her a lot of money, and the interest had just doubled. "Last night, when we entered the town, we saw your disciple, Wang Ao, walking toward us in a drunken state." Feng Bujue's ability to come up with lies was undeniable. "He saw how beautiful my wife was, so he came forward to harass her." He spat on the ground. The man probably thought that none of us knew kung fu, so he was fearless. "How dare you speak rudely in front of me," pointing at my wife and speaking frivolously. Feng Bujue glared at Gong Sun Qian fearlessly and scolded him indirectly. "I have always despised people like him who think they are good at kung fu and come from a powerful sect. At the time, I slapped him into pieces." He scoffed coldly. "Furthermore, I know my wife's temper better than anyone else. If I didn't make my move, she would have made her move, and the man would have died." Feng Bujue grumbled. "What? "Boss, are you going to take revenge for him?" His words were like a checkmate to the man. As a case of a dead man telling no tales, there was nothing that could be refuted at first glance. Of course, the most important part of that statement was the part about thinking that none of the five of us knew Kung Fu. That was what Feng Bujue wanted everyone to hear. Combined with the part about the murder, it explained some things. The people at the inn naturally knew about the two ways to enter Chonglin Town. At that moment, realization dawned on them. The five of them had some kind of skill that could hide their real power. But that was not surprising. They had not seen these people before in the martial world, so how could they have taken the main road to enter the town? Therefore, they must have taken the small path. And since they had taken the small path, they must be expert. This is just your side of the story. How can you? Gong Sun Qian was once again interrupted. Ask the two beside you whether I'm telling the truth or not, Feng Bujue said confidently. His confidence was not without reason. He knew very well that the two beside the boss would help him cover up his lie. The reason was simple. To kill a person, one needed a motive. Unless Si Yanran and Gong Sun Li thought it would be more convincing to accuse Feng Bujue of being a murderer, they had no reason to refute this story. After all, the real culprit was Si Yanran. In reality, the person that she had framed had nothing to do with Wang Ao. Now that Feng Bujue had come up with a motive, that was a great help to her. This, Si Yanran stammered. I did not see the murder. When I arrived, Wang Ao was already dead. Gong Sun Li also lowered his voice to say, Senior brother. I was even later. I did not see the conflict between Wang Ao and them, but I do not think they are lying. When he said this, he lowered his voice even more, also. I have often heard some gossip that martial nephew Wang likes to flirt with women and is a womanizer by nature. At this point, Gong Sun Qian believed about 80% of Feng Bujue's story. This was because a few hours ago, Si Yanran and Gong Sun Li did not explain things clearly. Of course, they could not explain it clearly. But now, Wang Ao's death seemed to make sense. After listening to Feng Bujue's lie and Gong Sun Li's indirect questioning, Gong Sun Qian recalled that there were several times when Wang Ao seemed to be flirting with his master's wife. Then, he thought that Wang Ao was indeed handsome. The more Gong Sun Qian thought about it, the more he felt that it was true. The idea of revenge for his disciple was basically gone. What do you think? Tower Master, is what I said true? Feng Bujue raised his voice and declared confidently, Today, I will say it right here and now. I am the one who killed him. If you say that I am wrong to kill him, then we will do it according to the rules of the martial arts world. Life and death are predestined. Let's see who is the real deal. Boss Gong Sun, you have to give us an explanation. Ji Tong, who had been watching from the side for a long time, understood what was going on, so he gloated. The other martial artists present also believed that Feng Bujue was telling the truth. They whispered to each other and discussed animatedly. Their opinions were basically the same. This time, Thousand Dawn Spire would not be able to clean up the mess. So it was their own disciple who had acted improperly and was killed on the spot because his skills were inferior. Could it be that they still wanted revenge? Wang Ao, really did that frivolous act right in front of you? Gong Sun Qian asked. Feng Bujue knew that this lie could not stand up to scrutiny. Even if Wang Ao was drunk, and he was confident that the 5 people in front of him did not know any martial arts, as a disciple of a righteous sect, he would not do something like flirting with women on the street. Plus, Ru Yu's appearance in the game was not at the level of a beauty that could cause the fall of a city. It was not like Wang Ao had never seen a woman before. Logically speaking, the probability of this happening was not 0, but it was very low. What? Could it be that you think Wang Ao's actions do not deserve death? Feng Bujue suddenly revealed a ruthless expression. He took a step forward and grabbed Gong Sun Qian's collar. Then, if I say a few flirtatious words to your wife in front of Boss Gong's son, will you tolerate it? Feng Bujue looked furious, but he was actually very calm. His response was very sly. He did not directly answer Gong Sun Qian's question, but changed the topic to something else. It was as if there was no need to discuss the truth of the flirtatious words, and Gong Sun Qian was just looking for an excuse. Feng Bujue's reaction was out of everyone's expectations. Because Master Gongsun was caught off guard, he failed to evade the man's outstretched hand. Gong Sun Qian had been in the martial world for a long time, but he had never encountered something like this before. In the martial world, if someone wanted to fight with you, they would fight. No one would grab you by the collar to threaten you. Even the whale gang, who used to be salt smugglers, would not do something like this. Young hero, please calm down. Gong Sun Qian didn't know how to respond. If he took this opportunity to strike the other party, that would be too despicable. So, he could only reply, "That's not what I meant." Humph. Feng Bujue let go of the other party with a cold snort, but his expression was still very unhappy. His teammates gasped in amazement at his lifelike performance. Laughing Soul couldn't help but whisper into Xiao Tan's ear, "Movie King, yeah." Xiao Tan also replied. Even Si Yanran, who was standing across from them, was confused. "I was the one who killed Wang Ao last night, right? It should be me, right? Gong Sun Li and I teamed up to frame them, right? What kind of situation is this? Not only did this person take the blame for me, he even made up the story, and acted as if it really happened. Is this person crazy? I haven't asked for young hero's name yet." Gong Sun Qian straightened his clothes and put on a more polite expression. At that moment, he understood that in terms of right and wrong, there was no point in arguing. Right now, it was obvious that the other party was in the right. Faced with the burning gazes of so many Jianghu fellows present, if he insisted to the end, he would only further humiliate himself. Broken Sword Chahitsu's leader, Feng Bujue. Feng Bujue greeted him with a fist salute. This was not an easy question to answer. Gong Sun Qian had never heard of this sect before, and he wasn't shameless enough to reply with a, "I've heard a lot about you." He had no choice but to change the topic. Master Feng, Wang Ao's actions have no sense of propriety, justice, integrity, or shame. Furthermore, he has violated the rules of the Thousand Dawn Spire. This person deserved to die, so it would be best to kill him. He called him by his name and no longer referred to him as a disciple. "I did not investigate carefully enough and was careless in accepting a disciple. Young hero Feng, you helped Thousand Dawn Spire get rid of this scoundrel, but for some unknown reason, I offended you. Please forgive me." That's more like it. Feng Bujue sat down again and took a sip of his tea. He was not polite to Gong Sun Qian at all. He looked like he was saying, "I killed someone and you think I'm in the right?" Not only was Master Feng not giving him any face, but he was also extremely arrogant. Gong Sun Qian's old face was a little embarrassed. Looking at Ji Tong's mocking expression, Gong Sun Qian felt a wave of anger rise from his feet to the top of his head. He thought to himself, "I can't just sit back and swallow this insult. I have to find a way to get back at him." Of course, he couldn't just fight directly. He would be accused of bullying. Therefore, he decided to provoke him verbally. Even if they didn't fight, he could still humiliate him. With that thought, Gong Sun Qian said, "Haha, Leader Feng, I've been in the martial world for many years." He smiled and said, "But I've never heard of this sect called Broken Sword Chahitsu. Young hero, you're so young, but you're already so skilled in martial arts. You're also the leader of a sect. Who is your master? Where is your sect? Also, how many disciples do you have in your sect?" Everyone, this is asking for trouble. If language was a weapon, Gong Sun Qian would be like a wooden stick, an ancient weapon, and Feng Bujue would be like an Armstrong jet Armstrong cannon. The corner of Feng Bujue's lips curled up to reveal a lewd smile. His expression caused goosebumps to rise all over Gong Sun Qian's body, and it gave him a very bad feeling. Naturally, Feng Bujue already knew what the man was thinking. He laughed coldly and replied, "Well said, well said. I learned without a teacher and opened my own door. My sect does not have a fixed residence. Other than my wife and I, there are only 3 guests." Chapter 203. He said it loud and clear, in a tone that was not shameful but rather proud of it. The crowd was shocked. Even Feng Bujue's friends were stunned. In the world of martial arts, saying self-taught was like saying, "I have superpowers," to someone in the real world. When the phrase self-taught was said after self-taught, it was enough to scare people to death. Ha 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 ha! Drunk monk Lu San, who was leaning against the stairs and drinking, laughed loudly. Good! What a great self-taught method! The monk suddenly interrupted. I've been in Jianghu for many years, and I've seen many famous people. Many people can't live up to their fame. I've also seen many people who talk big. Most of them are just people who blow their own trumpet. They're not worth mentioning. He took another swig of the wine in the jar, and then raised his eyes to look at Feng Bujue. Someone as unknown as Master Feng who is able to utter such shocking words. This is the first time I've met someone like you. At this point, Lu San suddenly used the move, flying snake offering wine. One of his arms curled up and suddenly stretched out, a whirlwind like a whip spinning top acted on the wine jar in his arms. Monk, let me toast you. With a low shout, the wine jar flew out of Lu San's arm and flew toward Feng Bujue. Lu San looked rough and unrestrained, but he was actually very meticulous. He was not bad at scheming. This move of his had been carefully thought out. All the masters present could see that the high-speed spinning wine jar had hidden internal strength. It was impossible for ordinary people to block it. If he could catch the wine jar in his arm, then Feng Bujue had to be an expert in internal energy, and if he could break the jar with brute force, then he had to be an expert in external kung fu. Of course, there was also the possibility that he would be hit directly. That would be very embarrassing. Lu San's actions seemed to be looking for trouble, but in reality, he was helping Feng Bujue. Because Brother Ju's words were too shocking, it could be said that the effect of mockery was outstanding, and everyone's aggro was instantly filled. Even the eminent monks of Shaolin, Scholar Renwu, and the Taoist priests of the free and unfettered sect shook their heads one after another. Not to mention the leaders of the other sects, almost all of them showed a disdainful expression and sneered. As for the disciples of the lower sects and Jianghu wanderers, they could not bear to hear such arrogant words. At this moment, if Lu San had not made the first move, it was likely that some second-rate Jianghu figure would have jumped out immediately and shouted something like, "Sir, you sure talk big. I'm so-and-so from a certain sect, and I'd like to learn from you." Then, they would have stepped forward and exchanged 2 blows with Brother Ju. Lu San knew very well that the weaker a person's martial arts was, the more they did not know how to control their strength. It was fine if it was a first-class martial artist, but he was afraid that a few second-class or third-class bastards would appear and attack viciously, hurting people's bones. Now that the drunken monk had spoken, the juniors present, or those who knew their kung fu was inferior to the drunken monk, no longer dared to make a move. With a first-class martial artist like him testing the waters, everyone just had to watch. Lu San's own thought was, if Brother Feng could block the wine jar, that would be the best. Others would see his real kung fu and would not cause trouble for him. If he could not block it, this move of mine would not seriously injure him. At that time, he would feel ashamed and leave. That was a good idea, however. Feng Bujue's reaction was once again beyond everyone's expectations. When the drunken monk laughed, Feng Bujue realized what this NPC was going to do. So, he immediately took out Death Poker and hid it in his palm, preparing to defend himself. No matter how the other party attacked, Feng Bujue would use the same strategy to deal with all changes. Anyway, when faced with a slightly stronger attack, He only had this shield card as a safety measure. At this moment, the wine jar flew through the air and arrived in the blink of an eye. But only a crackling sound was heard. That wine jug shattered, shattering in midair. It was as if it had crashed into a wall of air. The wine inside splashed out, but it did not pass through the invisible barrier. Feng Bujue sat in his chair without moving. He held the teacup in one hand and the other hand dangled, naturally, under the table. From the beginning to the end, his expression was calm. When the wine jar crashed into the glowing force field, Feng Bujue turned to look at it from the corner of his eyes. The next second, he suddenly reached out and extended the teacup in his hand. At this moment the shield card disappeared. Feng Bujue reached out and used the cup to catch the wine that was splashing down. Then, he pretended to hold the cup in front of him. This master is really generous. Feng Bujue looked at the wine cup in front of him. He said he wanted to give me a toast, but in the end, he gave me a jar. He smiled. But I am not good at drinking, so this cup is enough. Then, he drank the small cup of wine in one gulp. The whole place was silent. When the experts saw this scene, they all sucked in a breath of cold air. They all asked the same question in their hearts. What kind of martial arts was that? Even though Si Yanran had already experienced this move last night, she still couldn't see through it when she looked at it again. In terms of inner qi cultivation, those whose qi is sluggish can be said to have achieved mastery through a comprehensive study. Those who can release qi can be said to have reached the point of perfection. Those who can transform qi into form can be said to have reached the peak. Suddenly, a gentle voice narrated in an unhurried manner. The rhythm of the narration was just enough to be heard by everyone present. When the voice fell, everyone looked towards the direction of the voice. Their eyes focused on a seat in the corner of the inn. Feng Bujue also looked up and saw a 20-year-old purple-clothed woman sitting alone. At first glance, this woman had a delicate body and a beautiful appearance. Her skin was white as snow and jade-like face. But if one looked carefully, one could say that she was like a flower and the moon, dignified and elegant. This was especially true for her eyes. Her charming eyes were like drops of autumn water, making it hard for anyone to forget her after a single glance. As the saying goes, beautiful in one's imagination, this was probably just it. This woman was called Mu Rongyin. She was known as the fairy from beyond the clouds in the Jianghu. Although her skills could only be considered first-rate, her knowledge of martial arts was extremely profound. Everyone in the Jianghu said that if anyone could marry this young lady from the Mu Rong family, not only would they have great luck, they would also have half a master. However, it was also because of this reason that Mu Rong-yin had not married even though she was already 25 years old. If someone came to propose marriage, she would directly send them away. If someone wanted to get close to her, she would stay away. After all, people's hearts were sinister. She could not tell who was sincere and who had ulterior motives, so she simply rejected all of them. And this young hero Feng's martial arts are at an even higher level. Mu Rong-yin continued what she had just said. Qi can be controlled outside the body, and the qi can be golden. It can turn nothing into something, and it can gather and disperse as it pleases. She looked straight at Feng Bujue and met his eyes. It has been 300 years since someone with this kind of inner energy cultivation has appeared in the Jianghu. I didn't think that I would be lucky enough to see it today. I am impressed, very impressed. Feng Bujue was overjoyed when he heard this. This beautiful woman was too awesome. Originally, he thought that his bluff would take some effort to achieve its effect, but he did not expect someone to take the initiative to cooperate with him. Furthermore, her words were so clear and logical that even he himself was a little stunned. As expected, Mu Rong-yin's words instantly hoodwinked everyone. This was a rather interesting phenomenon. When something strange happened, and no one knew what the truth was, suddenly, a person who was usually quite reliable came out to express his personal opinion. Then, regardless of whether the opinion was correct or not, it would most likely become the publicly acknowledged truth. Gong Sun Qian, who was standing closest to Feng Bujue, was completely dumbfounded. Originally, he had only been suspicious about the golden force field. But now, he was certain that this Master Feng before him was truly an unparalleled master. Ha ha! Girl Mu Rong, you are quite knowledgeable. I knew this kid was not as simple as he seemed. Meng Jiu's laughter rang out. No one knew when he had appeared, but he was sitting on the threshold of the inn, leaning against the door frame and drinking. It was common knowledge that this leader of the beggars' sect would wait at the entrance of the village every night. When the crowd heard him say that he was not as simple as he seemed, they filled in the gaps in their minds. It was as if Master Feng had already fought with Meng Jiu for 300 rounds when he came to town last night, and in the end, he even won by hiding his true strength. As Meng Jiu laughed, he yelled at Lu San, who was far away, "Monk Lu! You screwed up! Ha ha! What a waste of that jar of wine of yours!" Lu San was a straightforward person, and what happened just now did not make him lose face. In fact, it made him look good, so he laughed as well. Ha ha! Old beggar! I am not as stingy as you. To be able to witness something like this, what is a jar of wine? Meng Jiu's appearance and his conversation with Lu San once again broke the short silence of the martial artist. The chatter in the guest hall rang out again. Everyone was talking, and the focus was now on the 5 people from Broken Sword Chahitsu. As for the stupid incident at Thousand Dawn Spire, it had long been forgotten. At this moment, another person on the 2nd floor of the inn spoke. I was wondering why it was so lively. So, it's because an important guest has arrived. The man who spoke was a white-robed swordsman. He looked to be less than 40 years old, and he had sharp eyebrows and bright eyes. Master Feng. He leaped lightly and took 2 steps in the air. He jumped from the 2nd floor to Feng Bujue's table and stood firmly. I have been waiting for a long time. Do I know you? Feng Bujue looked at him and asked. As soon as he said that, it caused another commotion. What? He said he doesn't know Lin Chang? The strongest of the Yi family's 6 flowery blades, and he said he doesn't know him. What is this Feng kid up to this time? It was normal for the people to be shocked, because the person who was talking to Feng Bujue was the leader of the Yi family's 6 flowery blades. Compared to Gong Sun Qian and Ji Tong, his kung fu was probably better. Among the swordsmen, excluding Xie San and Yi Qing, he should be the 3rd. Of course, there was still a huge gap between him and the other 2. Ha ha! Lin Chang smiled and bowed. I am Lin Chang, Blue Sky Sword. I have been waiting for Master Feng for a long time. Do you mind if I invite the heroes of Broken Sword Chahitsu to come upstairs for a chat? Chapter 204. After Feng Bujue and the rest followed Lin Chang up to the 2nd floor, the show in the morning finally came to an end. However, the discussion among the martial artists would not stop there. Feng Bujue's entrance into the martial world was definitely shocking. In fact, it could be said that he had, for a period of time, made the martial artists at Changlin Town forget why they were there. Who was Feng Bujue? What kind of kung fu did he practice? How could someone in his 20s possess such amazing kung fu? When was Broken Sword Chahitsu founded? Was it really just a small sect? Or was there a bigger organization behind it? Other than Feng Bujue, how good were the other 4? And so on. Of course, on the 2nd day, as more and more major events happened and the date of the duel approached, the people's focus shifted to other things. Let's put that aside for now and focus on the morning of the 1st day. After Feng Bujue and the rest were invited upstairs by Lin Chang, the people from Thousand Dawn Spire were embarrassed. They could only return to their seats and lower their heads to drink, not mentioning the incident before them. Gong Sun Qian had wanted to humiliate the other party to get back at him, but he didn't expect the other party to spout such arrogant words without hesitation. Then, the other party even revealed an incredible inner strength secret art, leaving everyone speechless. Seeing the mocking glances from Ji Tong's table at Octagonal Spire, Gong Sun Qian was furious. Soon, he stood up and left the inn hall. Just as he was about to head upstairs, Ji Tong said to him, "Brother Gong Sun, don't forget to dispose of that piece of dog shit's body. Otherwise, it'll dirty the inn's place." Humph! Gong Sun Qian scoffed and did not reply to this provocation. What happened that day was not a great humiliation. It was over. If he were to get into a conflict with Ji Tong now, it would make Gong Sun Qian fly into a rage out of humiliation, which would cause him to lose his demeanor as an expert. As he went upstairs, Gong Sun Qian ordered his eldest disciple in a low voice, "When no one is looking, take your juniors and bury Wang Ao's body in the mountain." "Yes, disciple obeys," his disciple replied. Gong Sun Qian seemed to have thought of something and added, "Let's go through the back door." Yes, this disciple understands. The reopened Chong Lin Inn had obviously been renovated. The size of the inn was twice as big as when it was abandoned many years ago. The inn had a total of 4 floors, and there were indeed quite a few rooms. There were more than 50 rooms upstairs and downstairs. They were divided according to heaven, earth, and human, and then arranged according to A, B, C. The furniture and decorations in each room were also slightly different. The situation at Copper Hillock County was mentioned earlier. Due to the negotiation at Copper Hillock County, in the end, most of the people from the various sects entered Chong Lin on the same day. After entering the town, they naturally discovered that there was a shortage of rooms in the inn. It was impossible for a sect to occupy 20 rooms with only the sect master and 20 disciples, right? In that case, as long as the people on the second floor of the first mansion stayed inside, the inn would be full. Therefore, after some discussion, the various sects decided to share the rooms fairly. Even though the Thousand Dawn Spire was huge, in the end, they only occupied a total of 4 guest rooms. One room for the sect leader and his wife, another room for Gong Sun Li, another room for the 2 most senior disciples, and another room for the other 5 disciples. Of course, after Wang Ao's corpse was taken care of, the 5 disciples would become 4. As for the remaining 10 disciples, they could only stay outside the inn. When the sect leader had orders, they had to be at his beck and call. Similarly, the Octagon Inn also took up 4 rooms. After that, the other 3 sects and 4 groups only had 3 rooms each. As for the other sects, they only had 2 rooms at most. Some third-tier sects' sect leaders had to gather in groups of 3 to 5 people to get a room in the inn. Their treatment was even worse than that of the head disciples of the large sections. Compared to these people, lone wolves like Lu San, who had good kung fu and status in the martial world, had a big advantage. As long as they arrived early, they could get a room to themselves. At that moment, Feng Bujue's group followed Lin Chang to Sky Room C, which was one of the best rooms at the inn. Before the duel, only 7 people came from the Yi family. Other than the 6 flowery blades, it was Yi Hai. However, these 7 people had taken up the 7 best rooms in the inn. The Yi family was different from the other factions. As the Sword God's own faction and the leader of the martial world, they did not need to discuss this kind of rule with others at Bronze Peak. To be honest, even if the Yi family booked the inn and did not allow outsiders to stay, the people from other factions would have nothing to say. At the end of the day, this duel was a private affair between Xie San and Yi Cheng. They did not invite anyone to watch the duel. It was because the news was leaked that so many people were attracted. This bunch of people who liked to join in the fun had come uninvited to witness the epic duel. The Yi family did not take the tickets and did not chase them away. That was already very kind of them. If there was a fair distribution, that was between them. The Yi family had no reason to interfere. Young Master Feng, Lin Chang introduced them to Feng Bujue as soon as he entered the room. "These 3 are my juniors." At that moment, 3 people were already seated in Sky Room C. They were obviously waiting for Feng Bujue's group to arrive. This is Master Feng. Lin Chong turned to his 3 companions and used his finger to point at the players. This is Madame Feng, and the other 3 are the heroes of Broken Sword Chahits. Lin Chang's brief introduction was enough of an introduction. Then one of the people spoke. I am Sword in Bamboo Miao Shaoqing. The person who spoke was a man around 30. He looked cultured and had a scholarly air about him. He was wearing a black robe, and his sword was leaning against the chair beside him. The sword in bamboo looked like a normal bamboo, about 1 meter long. Some people might believe it if it was a dog-beating stick, but if it was a sword, others might not even be able to tell which side was the hilt. Miao Shaoqing was ranked 5th among the 6 flowery blades. He was the lowest among the 4 blades, so he was the first to greet Feng Bujue. It's an honor to meet you, Feng Bujue said with a smile, but in his heart, he was thinking, it feels like there are a lot of weird names to remember: Autumn Orchid Sword, Su Tang. Tanhua Sword, Yi Mu Han. The next 2 to introduce themselves were both female swordsmen. They did not address themselves as I am, perhaps because they felt that it was inappropriate for them to address themselves as I am in front of Feng Bujue. Autumn Orchid Sword, Su Tang, was ranked 4th among the 6 blades. She was 26 years old. Although she was not extremely beautiful, she was still a beauty. She was very small in size. When she stood up, she was only 1.5 meters tall. As for the size of her upper body, it was extremely disproportionate to her height. It could be said that she was wearing a jade towering gauze dress with snow as a peak. Even though she was wearing a beige outfit with a high collar, it was still difficult to hide her proud curve. The Tanhua sword, Yi Mu Han, looked a few years older than Su Tang. She exuded the aura of a tough woman. Her hair was tied up like a man's, and her skin was rough. Even her voice was rough. However, it was not to the point where it was hard to tell her gender. After all, she did not have an Adam's apple. Even though she had a handsome face, compared to a Tobi-sama, she was indeed more feminine. Greetings, ladies. Feng Bujue returned the greeting. Since they had introduced themselves, Xiao Tan and the rest had to at least introduce themselves out of courtesy. I am Wang Tanji, I don't have a nickname. Chapter 205. Actually, it was not that Xiao Tan did not have a nickname, but the nervous fighter did not sound like a title that a martial artist should have. In reality, of the 5 people present, only Feng Bujue's title of unpredictable fanatic could be spread far and wide. For example, Passing Rain's elemental swordsman, Laughing Soul's sharp gunman, and a Tobi-sama's high-profile ambush. At least in the eyes of this group of people from the wuxiao world, their meaning was unclear and hard to understand. Li Ruo Yu. Shaoling Gu. After all, this was not the world of lightning, so Passing Rain and Laughing Soul could not be counted as names. Therefore, Passing Rain and Laughing Soul gave their real names. A Tobi-sama hesitated for 2 seconds. Jin Fugue. When they heard that name, even Feng Bujue almost burst out laughing, and Passing Rain was trying her best to hold it in. Xiao Tan and Laughing Soul had completely lost their minds. Both of them punched a Tobi-sama's shoulders and could not stop laughing. Ha ha! So that's how it is. Ha 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 ha! They laughed until tears were coming out of their eyes, and this confused the 4 NPCs standing opposite them. Oh, this is one of my 3 guests. He loves to joke around. Feng Bujue explained to the NPCs with a natural expression. This is a joke that only they understand, and I believe they could not help but laugh out loud. If there is any disrespect, please forgive them. His explanation was not that convincing, but Lin Chong and the rest did not think too much about it. From their perspective, at most, the boy had given a fake name and was laughed at by his peers. But in reality, a Tobi-sama had indeed given his real name. In the middle of the 21st century, for a person who grew up in a big city to be given such a name by his parents, the feeling of growing up was something that could only be understood and forgotten. Haha, Master Feng, you are being too serious. Lin Chang was the first of the 6 flowery blades, and he was also the oldest, so he was naturally experienced and considerate. He then nonchalantly said, Come, please sit, we can talk after sitting down. He led the people from Broken Sword Chahitsu to a large table in the room and sat down. As Feng Bujue took his seat, he changed the topic. By the way, I wonder why you have invited us here? Is there anything we can help you with? We are not worthy of the honor, Mu Han said. Yi Mu Han said, based on the skill Master Feng showed downstairs just now, I'm afraid it's more than enough for you to teach us. Ha, you flatter me. Feng Bujue's smile was as fake as it could be. He was thinking, Miss, don't tell me you want to personally test my kung fu skills again? If that's the case, I'll be in deep trouble, Master Feng, Lin with a smile Lin Chang and the others. Lin Chang smiled and said, Even old man Yi has a whole new level of respect for your martial arts. That's rare. I'm afraid Master Feng will not be able to find a match among your peers, right? No. Feng Bujue opened his right palm and pointed at passing rain. Among my peers, there is someone here who is more powerful than me. The expressions of the 4 NPCs changed several times. They were getting more and more confused about this Master Feng. From the expression on his face, it was impossible to tell which of his words were true and which were false. Even from the content of his words, it was hard to tell the truth. For example, if what Feng Bujue said was true, it meant that this Miss Li was more powerful than her husband. Then, wouldn't that mean that she was at least at the same level as the 6 flowery blades? But if what he said was false, then it was just a joke. Other than proving that this Master Feng might be a henpecked husband, it had no other meaning. Even Lin Chang, the most shrewd of them all, felt that the situation was tricky. Over the years, he had interacted with countless people in the martial world. He knew very well that the most difficult people to deal with were those who looked crazy but were actually calm and scheming. This kind of person could use a joking tone to tell the truth, and could also use a serious attitude to talk nonsense with you. Both the truth and the falsehood were unpredictable. No one knew what this kind of person was thinking, and no one could predict what they would do. Feng Bujue quickly added, By the way, Brother Lin, is this Elder Yi that you mentioned the senior that I met on the small road outside the town? Yes, Lin Chang said. Feng Bujue asked tentatively, I wonder if that elder is related to all of you? Actually, the information that Feng Bujue knew was limited. Even though he had gotten some basic information about the town from Meng Jiu the previous night, and he knew that the old man that he had sparred with on the path was Yi Hai, the butler of the Yi family. But as for the 6 flowery blades, Feng Bujue knew nothing. Even the words, 6 flowery shadow swords, were something he had heard from the discussions of the people around him when he was in the inn's lobby. So, the question that Feng Bujue threw out was rather vague. He did not take the initiative to say Yi Hai's name. He only asked further questions based on what Lin Chang said, hoping to lead Lin Chang to reveal more information. On the other hand, Lin Chang and the rest thought that Master Feng had only heard of the famous 6 flowery blades and did not know who Yi Hai was. That was why he asked such a question. So Lin Chang replied, Elder Yi is the butler of the Yi family. So, we naturally know him. But he rarely gets involved in the pugilistic world, so it's not strange that Master Feng doesn't know him. Even though he only shared some information that I already knew, from his tone, I can deduce that the 6 flowery blades are also from the Yi family. Feng Bujue thought. They invited us up so politely probably because that old man, Yi Hai, has already given them a heads up. Another thought crossed his mind. But why didn't they invite us up when we first entered the inn? From what Yi Mu Han said, they should have been observing the movements on the first floor for a long time. The conclusion came almost instantaneously. Humph, they want to see our strength with their own eyes before they decide whether to negotiate with us. Many thoughts flashed through his mind in an instant, and they were all carried out in an orderly manner in Feng Bujue's mind. His expression, including his eyes, did not change at all. Every nerve and every muscle on this fellow's face was like the camouflage of a chameleon. As long as he was willing, he could completely hide his emotions. This half-smile, solemn yet harmonious face could be said to be a natural talent. Oh, no wonder, no wonder. Feng Bujue replied pretentiously. Lin Chong continued. It was Elder Ye's idea to invite all of you here. He asked us to settle all of you down in the inn. His gaze swept across the guest room. This sky room C was originally Old Man Ye's room, but ever since he came to town, he didn't step in at all. It's been empty all this time. As for the reason, I'm sure you all know, Master Feng. So, Elder Yi wants to do you a favor and let Master Feng have the guest room. He invites the 5 of you to stay here for 2 days. If you don't mind. What are you talking about? This is exactly what we want. Feng Bujue put on a grateful expression. I thank the 4 of you and Elder Yi for your kindness. At this moment, Brother Bujue was thinking, that old thing is really something. He eats wind and drinks smoke, and doesn't sleep or rest. Could it be that this is the legendary existence that can replace sleep by meditating, and can last 3 to 5 days by drinking a few mouthfuls of dew? No need to be so polite, Lin Chong said. Our Yi residence is naturally happy to make friends with a young hero like Master Feng. Now that we're done with the formalities and the benefits have been given, can we talk about that matter now? Yi Mu Han interjected calmly. Even though her tone was normal, her words were still quite harsh. Lin Chong hurriedly tried to salvage the situation by saying, He. Master Feng, to be honest, there is indeed one more thing that we need your help with. Feng Bujue smelled the scent of a mission flag. He immediately said, Just say it. I heard from Elder Yi that Master Feng is a person with innate pure yang inner energy? Lin Chong asked. Feng Bujue remembered the skill he used when he fought with Yi Hai and immediately understood. It was most likely that after Yi Hai was hit by a fire-type combat skill, he came to the conclusion that Feng Bujue had innate pure yang inner energy. This was similar to the theory that the beauty downstairs had said about him, controlling qi outside his body, turning nothing into something. They were both wrong conclusions based on wrong information. Isn't it obvious? Feng Bujue asked. His answer was as good as not answering. What was obvious about it? Obvious? Obviously not? Senior brother, let me say this myself, Su Tong suddenly said. She looked at Feng Bujue and said, To be honest with you, Master Feng, I have a favor to ask of you this time. She paused for a moment, then continued, A few months ago, the mental cultivation method I cultivated, Dark Nether Mantra, had reached the peak of the 7th level. However, due to the limitations of my inner energy, I was unable to break through the bottleneck with my own strength. She had a difficult expression on her face. Because I have innate pure yin inner energy, if I want to forcefully break through the Qi gate, I need someone with pure yang inner energy to assist me when I'm trying to break through the Qi gate. Su Tong had no other choice, so she had to ask for help. The growth of one's inner energy was related to one's innate talent. If she relied on herself and cultivated using conventional methods, she would only reach the 8th level of Dark Nether Mantra by the age of 30 at the earliest. Feng Bujue interrupted her and scanned everyone with a curious gaze. This. Miss Su, could it be that your 2 seniors and juniors are? Lin Chong said, Master Feng, you might not know this, but to suppress my junior sister's innate pure yin inner energy is not something an ordinary person can do. It has to be at least a virgin who has cultivated inner energy for more than 20 years, and someone who has cultivated a yang-type mental cultivation method. My inner energy is also on the soft side, Miao Shaoqing added. Even though big senior brother has yang-type inner energy, he is already married, so he does not meet the requirements. I am also married, Feng Bujue said immediately. That is not a problem because Master Feng has innate pure yang inner energy, so his innate talent is different from a normal person's, Su Tong said. Feng Bujue was still trying to come up with a solution. By the way, since you are called the 6 blades of flowery shadow, then there should be 2 blades. Oh, my 6th junior sister, Lu Qingning, is also a female, Miao Shaoqing replied. Second senior brother, Shadowless Sword, Shang Fei, cultivates an inner energy method that balances yin and yang. Ha ha. Speaking of which, there are so many heroes gathered at Changlinin. Feng Bujue laughed drily, still hoping that he could get away with it. Of course, he knew that this was going to be troublesome, even though the martial world was huge. Those who could be called elites were all gathered there. If there were other suitable candidates in the inn, the Yi residents would have dealt with that person long ago, even if it was through coercion and bribery. The only reason they came to Feng Bujue was because there was no one who met the requirement. For a martial artist, the increase in level was the most important thing. If Su Tong really waited until she was 30 before she reached the 8th level of the Nether Mantra, then she would only have one choice in the next few years, which was to change to another type of martial art as a supplementary mantra. This was because even if she continued to practice the original Nether Mantra, it would be difficult for her to improve much. It would only be a waste of time. To put it more seriously, these few years of delay would affect the level she could reach in her lifetime. The 6 blades were as close as brothers. They were also troubled by Su Tong's problem. Actually, if Su Tong's innate talent was normal, there would not be so much trouble. Any one of the 6 blades could help her break through, and the bottleneck would be over. However, she had innate pure yin inner energy, thus, Feng Bujue, due to a series of coincidences, became their only choice. If he had randomly gotten a skill when he used Eat My Move last night, as long as it was not a fire attribute skill, there would not be this much trouble. For example, if it was an ice attribute skill, perhaps Yi Hai would misunderstand that Feng Bujue was the successor of the Xian Ming Divine Palm. The problem was that he had been misunderstood as someone with innate pure yang inner energy. He could not admit that he had no inner energy and did not know any martial arts, right? If this news was leaked, he would be beaten to death the moment he stepped out. Seeing that Feng Bujue seemed to be in a difficult position, Yi Mu Han slammed the table. Brat, we are sincerely begging you, but you are making all kinds of excuses. What is the meaning of this? It's just transferring some true qi to my junior sister. How difficult is it? It won't affect your foundation. At most, after it's done, the Yi family will give you a few great recovery pills as repayment for your true qi. Yi Mu Han still had an arrogant attitude. Her personality was blunt, and so was her words. However, this couldn't be considered a problem. A straightforward person usually wasn't bad in nature. Furthermore, she was the best swordswoman in the martial arts world and Yi Cheng's sister. If she did not have this kind of pride, it would be abnormal. It's not that he doesn't want to help, Passing Rain suddenly said, but he is unable to help. What do you mean? Yi Mu Han looked at Passing Rain and asked. The martial arts our sect cultivates are different from any other sect in the current martial arts world. You should have noticed that our inner strength, skills, and other things, you can't see them on the surface. Passing Rain began to bluff her way out of the situation. Indeed, your martial arts are completely flawless. Lin Chong nodded. Passing Rain glanced at Feng Bujue. Brother Bujue, he does have innate pure yang inner energy. He is extremely talented and created his own school. However, he practices a martial art that he came up with on his own. He doesn't even have the most basic knowledge about other martial arts. Therefore, he doesn't know how to transfer true qi to others or how to protect them. She sighed softly. Sigh. It's not that Brother Jew doesn't want to help, but what you're asking of him is too much. Haha. You are the one who is most reliable at this crucial moment. Feng Bujue was overjoyed. Since passing rain had helped him, Feng Bujue acted like the owner of Urahara Inn and said in a low voice, "That's right, my martial arts are for killing, not for." "Haha, is that so?" Lin Chang interrupted with a smile. "That's fine. If Master Feng doesn't mind, I will teach you the most basic set of inner energy cultivation technique. In half a day, Brother Feng will be able to master the method of transferring true qi." Feng Bujue, F*ck, you're forcing me to do this. I have to help you no matter what. Since that's the case, I will not shirk my responsibility. Everyone, please don't worry. I will do my best to help Miss Su improve her martial arts. Feng Bujue put on an expression of acceptance. He waited for the four people's expressions to lighten before he changed the topic. "However, if I ask Brother Lin for a cultivation technique, it will be considered as learning the Yi family's martial arts. I wonder if Master Yi will." "Young Master Feng, please don't worry. I will only teach you the basic cultivation technique of the Yi family's disciples. It's not some secret of the family. Master Yi won't mind," Lin Chang said directly. "Besides, the final battle for the Master Yi family is imminent. For such a small matter, it doesn't seem appropriate to send a messenger pigeon to ask for instructions. It's just martial arts practitioners exchanging some basic skills. It's not like he wants to take you in as a disciple." At this time, Yi Muhan used a more direct and unpleasant way to say, "Lord Feng thinks that this matter will be used as evidence in the future, and people will say that you were taught by Azure Sky Sword. Then, you should teach my senior martial brother Lin some superficial martial arts as a gift in return." "Haha. Miss Yi, you must be joking. What kind of skill do I have that I can teach Master Lin?" Feng Bujue still replied politely. He knew that this was a mission where he could learn some kind of skill, but he could not accept it immediately because Lin Chang said that he could learn it in half a day. That meant that half a day later, the fact that he had no internal energy would be exposed. Therefore, Feng Bujue's plan was to buy time and wait for him to come up with a solution before accepting the mission. What he said earlier was to get the other party to ask for Yi Qing, who had not shown up in town. Wasting half a day was not a bad thing, but to his surprise, Lin Chang said that there was no need for that. Now, he had to come up with another excuse. "Master Lin, I wonder if you can wait until tomorrow to teach my husband the cultivation technique?" Passing Rain asked again. "Oh? Why is that?" "There is something unique about our sex kung fu. You all saw what Brother Bujue did downstairs earlier," Passing Rain explained calmly. It was impossible to tell that she was making it up. Even though it is impressive, there is a price to pay. As for the specific reason, I'm afraid that within today, he will— Yes, that's it." Feng Bujue suddenly interrupted Passing Rain loudly and winked at her. Of course, that was part of the act. When the other four saw this, they immediately believed that this matter was true. Because Feng Bujue looked like if Passing Rain continued, she would expose the weakness of Broken Sword Chahitsu's kung fu. "Oh ha! Since it's not convenient today, we can wait for another day," Lin Chang said. "Fourth sister, you won't mind waiting another day, right?" "Of course," Su Tang replied and bowed at Feng Bujue. Su Tang would like to thank Master Feng in advance. Chapter 206. After exchanging some pleasantries, Feng Bujue received the key to Heaven Room C. Then, the four of them bade farewell and left. Item name, key item type, plot item quality, normal function. The holder and their team will gain the ownership of Sky Room C at Chong Lin Inn. Can be taken out of the scenario. Yes. Remark. Even if you don't have the key with you, as long as your team has it, you can enter and exit the room freely. Oh, this thing can be transformed into a puzzle card after the scenario ends. Feng Bujue read the item description. You should let passing rain carry this. You're the strongest here, so you won't die so easily. You have more space in your inventory than I do. Hey, I'm the one with the highest level here, and I'm a professional. No matter how you look at it, it's me who is stronger, right? Atobi chimed in. Feng Bujue changed the topic. Speaking of profession, I have a plan that I need your help with. Huh? What plan? Atobi asked. Do you still remember the beauty who commented on my kung fu on the first floor of the inn? Feng Bujue asked. Yes, that Meng Jiu mentioned. Her surname is Morong? Atobi replied. At the time, I was eavesdropping on the discussion of the group of NPCs. From the bits and pieces that they said, this Miss Morong should be a character similar to Bai Shaosheng. Feng Bujue scratched his chin. In other words, she has a large amount of information. You want me to go and get information from her? Atobi asked. Yes, after all, you're a professional. Feng Bujue replied. Just use your professional skills to strike up a conversation with her. After the conversation starts, tell her that you're new to the world and have many questions that you don't know, so you wish to ask her some questions. When I said profession, I was referring to a professional gamer. You're talking about a professional gigolo, right? Atobi yelled. Don't worry, I'm not asking you to sell your body. I'm just asking you to communicate with him. Feng Bujue ignored the grumbling and continued. The interaction between players and humanoid NPCs can also be referred to Item D of the Player Interaction Regulations. Regardless of gender, any behavior determined by the system to be sexual harassment, including the intention to use the methods listed in clauses B and C, will be restricted by the system. The player's intention will not be converted into the character's actual actions. Repeated attempts will be forcibly disconnected, and the player's citizen ID will be permanently added to the system's blacklist, becoming a high-priority monitoring target. I also looked into the specific details of interactions between players, humanoid NPCs, and monsters, and found that the restrictions were even stricter than the interactions between players. Players could still engage in a certain degree of intimacy if both parties were willing, but there would never be any erotic interactions between players and virtual avatars. NPCs would also never do anything to players in that way. However, he could not rule out the possibility that the NPCs would develop a good impression of the players. In short, you can boldly strike up a conversation. You definitely won't be taken advantage of. Hey, that was a beauty. It's not like she's some kind of hunk. Don't make it sound like I've profited from this. Not being taken advantage of is the true loss. Atobi replied, speaking of which, you managed to memorize the rules word for word, and you even managed to explain so clearly about the rule of not being able to date in different dimensions. What kind of mentality is that? About that, it's because I hugged a female NPC in a certain scenario. Of course, it was a very pure, platonic hug. Feng Bujue answered calmly. Then I thought of a question. Where is the limit of this setting? Therefore, I took some time to read up on the related game description. Sigh, then wouldn't it be much easier for us girls to seduce male NPCs? Laughing Soul joked. After all, nothing will happen to us. I say's girl, you have to respect yourself. Xiao Tan turned around and looked at her with a burning gaze. How do you plan to seduce them? Feng Bujue said. Any subjective action will be banned by the system. Objectively speaking, even if you want to show them your thighs or give them some benefits, you won't be able to change your appearance in the scenario, right? You have a point. Laughing Soul nodded as she glanced at Xiao Tan with a mocking gaze. Actually, based on her tone, it was not that she did not know the answer to this question. Perhaps she just wanted to see the person's reaction after hearing it. Alright, Jean Fugue, what do you say? Are you going or not? Feng Bujue asked. I'm warning you, you can call me a gigolo. Before Atobi could finish, Chen Gu interrupted him. Fine, gigolo, what do you think? Feng Bujue interrupted him. If I'm not married, I'll go on my own. With my glib tongue and pestering ability, there's no reason for me to fail in the negotiation. But based on the current situation, I'll definitely attract Miss Murong's ire. You can't let Xiao Tan go, right? We'll be lucky if the kid doesn't leak our information. It's just a negotiation. Why can't we girls do it? Passing Rain asked. Ha 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 ha. Feng Bujue guffawed 5 times before adding, that's a good idea. I've always wanted to know 2 women who don't know each other, and one of them is obviously trying to get close to the other. What kind of opening statement should be used? Passing Rain glared at Feng Bujue. After a long silence, she said, Fine, you should let the professional do it. Alright, you 2 can stop acting. I'll give it a try, Atobi said weakly. But I have to make it clear, if the NPC ignores me, there's nothing I can do. Of course not. Gigolo, why do you have to look down on yourself? Feng Bujue drawled. Someone as handsome and feminine as you definitely has a market among older women in ancient times. Even if she doesn't like you, facing someone who looks weak and hasn't done anything out of line, she'll at most politely say that she doesn't have anything in common with you and ask you to stop harassing her. Feng Bujue paused before continuing. And if Miss Murong doesn't think there's anything wrong with talking to you, then things will be much easier. He stood up. If my analysis is not wrong, this NPC should at least know most of the settings of this wuxiao world like the back of her hand. Things that are common knowledge to her are valuable information to us. So, for information that only we don't know about, you can try your best to ask her. I know, I'll play it by ear, Atobi replied. At this moment, that Miss Murong should still be sitting in the inn lobby. You've caused such a commotion earlier. If I, a guest from Broken Sword Chahitsu, go down now and greet her with so many people watching, it'll be hard for her to respond. I think we should find another time. Yes, that's what I'm thinking. Feng Bujue nudged the key on the table to Passing Rain. The latter accepted it silently and placed it inside her backpack. Let's talk about the second thing, Feng Bujue said. It's about the 6 flowery blades, and now they need the help of someone with pure yang internal energy like me. Even though it's been delayed for a day, tomorrow, when that Lin Chong finishes teaching you the Kung Fu and Su Tang needs you to protect her, the fact that you don't have internal energy will be exposed, Laughing Soul said. Solving this problem is far more important than collecting information because once this is messed up, we'll be in a very bad situation. Then, even if the 6 flowery blades don't directly become enemies with us, they won't have any reason to protect us, and they won't give us any benefits. You're right, this is very tricky. Feng Bujue agreed. Currently, I have 2 solutions in mind. The first one, I highly recommend, kill Su Tang? Passing Rain immediately voiced out Feng Bujue's thought. Yes. Feng Bujue answered decisively. And the best solution is to do it without her body being found. No one will know whether she's dead or alive. That way, at least before the duel, no one will bring up the matter of protecting her anymore. You're too cruel. Atobi looked at Feng Bujue with shock. Last time, when I saw you kill the zombies, I had this feeling that you're a homicidal maniac. Now, to keep the secret, you don't care whether the person is a good person or a bad person. You're going to kill them without hesitation. When you were playing Mario, before you killed Chestnut Boy, did you consider whether the person was a good or bad person? Feng Bujue asked. Atobi was startled, and several seconds later, he frowned. That's not the same thing, is it? TSK. Feng Bujue turned his head away with annoyance. You're trying to change the concept, Passing Rain commented succinctly. That failed, Laughing Soul added. I'm also against killing people. The fact that she might be as powerful as a boss aside, even if we can kill her, there's no guarantee that we won't be discovered during the fight and when we deal with the body. Xiao Tan also gave a constructive suggestion. There's no need to worry about that. If we really want to kill her, I have my ways. After we kill her, we'll cut her into 6 pieces, wrap her up in rags, and shove her into our backpack. No one will know. Feng Bujue added. You've already planned to this extent. Atobi was covered in cold sweat, thinking, just what kind of person is this? But you have a point. Feng Bujue changed the topic. You did remind me of something. I've read a thread on the forum. It said that the player's way of doing things in a scenario might affect their future growth. For example, those who follow certain morals and principles in the scenario and try their best to do good will have a better ending after clearing the scenario. And for those who had been doing evil and cruel things in the script, the plot that they encountered might be more depressing. Not only that, the thread also said that the skills and items that the player receives are related to the player's way of doing things. Haha! Shadow of the Demonic Bat. Xiao Tan's first reaction was to recite the name of the skill that Feng Bujue had given him. An unpredictable madman. Laughing Soul added. If this setting really exists, it can explain quite a lot of the situations that I've encountered in solo matches, Feng Bujue said. Is this considered a type of non-dominant attribute? Passing Rain asked. Perhaps. Based on this speculation, the players who are seen as lawful and kind by the system and the players who are chaotic and evil will be completely different in the later stages of the game. Not only skills, equipment, and titles, their gaming experience will be different as well, Feng Bujue said thoughtfully. In that case, we'd better not kill the innocent. Within the scope of the main quest, we should try our best to stand on the side of justice and do what is right. That way, we won't be seen as villains by the system like me. Atobi then asked, Then, what is your second solution? If we can't kill her, then we can injure her. Feng Bujue said. If Su Tang is injured to a certain degree and temporarily loses the ability to clear the Dark Spirit Mantra, then wouldn't this matter be delayed? He looked at the group. The game time is limited, and we won't be able to stay until the 4th day, so as long as we can drag this out until the evening of the day after tomorrow, this matter will be over. That's not a bad idea, Laughing Soul said. Laughing Soul said in a low voice, but we need to discuss how to injure that Miss Su. That's right. First, we can't injure her openly, so we can only ambush her, Feng Bujue said. Second, we can't let her suspect that we're behind this. He crossed his arms before his chest and shook his head. If we have Laughing Soul ambush her from afar, we can easily accomplish the first point. But then, they will definitely suspect us. This is because only a bunch of weirdos like us can use a method that they can't even explain to ambush her. Even if we use a method that other martial artists would use to ambush her, we'll still be the most suspicious. Xiao Tan said. You just accepted the 6 slashes today, and in one day, Su Tang was ambushed and injured. To be honest, even if someone else ambushed her during this period of time, we'll be the ones to be suspected. I have thought of a method that won't be suspected, Feng Bujue said. And it's the most ideal method: mass poisoning. Your way of thinking. Atobi was speechless. Feng Bujue's way of thinking was too unpredictable, and he would always jump to a ridiculous conclusion. The theory is simple. Feng Bujue explained. To cover up the fact that we're targeting Su Tang, we'll ambush everyone at the same time. This way, on the surface, it will look like she's just been poisoned by someone who isn't specifically targeting her. Ha ha. Try to stand on the side of justice and do the right thing. Xiao Tan narrowed his eyes, and his lips twitched as he repeated Feng Bujue's words. Feng Bujue pretended not to hear him and continued. To achieve a realistic effect, we can also pretend to be collectively poisoned during the incident to fool the public. Have you lost your mind? Atobi said. There's no other way. To ensure that a lie won't be exposed, we have to come up with a bigger lie. Feng Bujue said. At this moment, we're already in this situation. You have to understand that our current safety and freedom are all built on a foundation of lies. Once one of them is exposed, the whole series of illusions will collapse. To have a foothold in this town, or rather to survive, we have to try our best to keep up the pretense until the end. We have to try our best to maintain the mysterious and powerful image of broken sword Chahitsu at every second. If the people outside find out about our real power, this scenario will be very difficult to continue. In that situation, the only solution I can think of is to hide in the mountains. The premise is that we can leave this town, no, this street alive. That's right, Passing Rain agreed. In terms of fighting ability, if 3 NPCs with the same power level as the woman from last night come, we'll have to use our guns, or else we'll be wiped out. She looked at Feng Bujue. At this stage, if Bujue's actions are exposed, then in the eyes of the people in this world, we'll be deceiving the world. Then almost everyone will have the chance to fight us. Feng Bujue added, in any case, if we really get into a full-on fight, when the heroes see through our plan and learn about the basic properties of guns, we'll be dead. Either we keep up the pretense or we'll become the public enemy, Xiao Tan said darkly. Feng Bujue shrugged. It's like a Jew who accidentally wandered into Hitler's party during World War II. The only way for him to leave alive is to make the people around him think that he's a German. Let's talk about the poisoning then, Atobi said. If we succeed, we'll have achieved our goal and won't be suspected. Or rather, even if Six Swords suspects us, they won't be able to confirm it, Feng Bujue replied. Xiao Tan thought about it and said, as long as there's poison, anyone can do it. If only a few people are poisoned, then the target of suspicion will soon be someone who has a conflict of interest or resentment with the poisoned person. But if it's a large-scale poisoning that doesn't seem to be targeted, then it'll be hard to find the culprit. As long as we don't give ourselves away when we commit the crime, and we're poisoned after the incident, then… Fine, there are 3 questions. Laughing Soul could not help but interrupt. 1. Where are we going to find a poison that won't kill anyone and that has to be enough to feed more than 10 people? 2. How are we going to spread the poison evenly among the people at the inn? 3. How are we going to carry out the first and second steps without being discovered and without leaving any trace behind? Good question, Feng Bujue said. He tilted his head and shrugged. I have no clue. Then why are you talking so enthusiastically? That's why I said this is the most ideal method. As for how to do it, Feng Bujue said, we still have 1 day and 1 night to figure it out. Chapter 207. The discussion on the poisoning plan temporarily came to an end. Feng Bujue's group then discussed the plan for the rest of the day. Atobi-sama's main mission that day was to gather information. He planned to ask the workers at the inn about Mu Rongyin's room and then pay her a visit to see if the NPC would be willing to let him teach her a thing or two. This looked like an easy task, and there was no risk involved, but in reality, there was still some difficulty. The problem at hand was how to get the information out of the innkeeper's mouth. The players did not have anything that could be used as currency in this world, so it would be difficult to get information from them without giving them a tip. Feng Bujue did not think too much about the problem of money. Actually, this was quite troublesome. If not for the fact that the 6 flowery blades had given them this sky room, even if there was an empty room at the inn, Feng Bujue would not have been able to afford it. Of course, in Feng Bujue's initial plan, he did not consider the problem of paying the bill. After all, they would disappear into thin air in 2 days, so the manager could ask whoever he wanted. The players did not care about their reputation. Furthermore, even if Atobi-sama managed to find out which room Mu Rong-in was staying in, his attitude and choice of words during the negotiation had to be carefully considered. The so-called professional gigolo was naturally just a joke. Atobi-sama understood that Feng Bujue had built an image of, I will kill whoever dares to flirt with my wife, in the eyes of the martial artists. Therefore, it was impossible for Brother Bujue to have a private conversation with a beautiful woman. If he did, it would either prove that he was a hypocrite or that he was prepared to be hacked to death by his wife. To put it bluntly, it would not only be of no help to the progress of clearing the scenario, it would also negatively affect the negotiation with the NPC. With regards to Xiao Tan, even though Atobi-sama did not know him that well, from their interaction, even if the kid could not be described as innocent and kind, at least he was not a shrewd person. This kind of person was not suitable for intelligence work. Therefore, it could not be helped that Atobi would be the one to negotiate. He was, after all, the owner of a gaming studio. Even if he wasn't as good as experts like Laughing at the Heavens, he wasn't any worse than the average player. From the game's perspective, this was just a test of the player's ability to communicate with NPCs. As long as he followed the worldview of the script, politely and reasonably, there was no reason that he would not be able to get any information out of him. Even if it was a video game from 70 years ago, the NPCs in the city would at least repeat the same sentence to the players. In today's optical computer era, how could there be no such thing as a lack of answers? As for the 4 members of the underworld frontline, they had planned to split into 2 groups. Feng Bujue and Passing Rain went up the mountain from the north of town to explore the ruined temple in the forest north of the village, mentioned in the plot introduction. Xiao Tan and Laughing Soul combed through the empty houses in the town to look for items and skills. This grouping was suggested by Feng Bujue. Of course, his basis was not that it would be less tiring for both men and women, but that it was the safest and most efficient arrangement considering the actual situation of the scenario. When Feng Bujue listened to the plot introduction, he noticed that the introduction did not explicitly state whether there were ghosts in this world or not. It only used the term rumor, and at the end there was a confusing sentence. What was the result of this duel? What is the truth behind this ghost town? Is there a hidden conspiracy behind all this? This kind of introduction appeared to provide some information, but it was more like a guide to mislead the players. From the beginning to the end, the players could not be sure that the town was really haunted, but they could not be sure that it was the work of a human. Therefore, for the sake of insurance, Feng Bujue decided to treat the rest of the rumor as the truth. Even if the ruined temple on the mountain was really haunted by evil spirits, the combination of him and Passing Rain should be able to deal with it. He had Death Poker, and Passing Rain's elemental swordsman title and skill were the bane of spirits. The combination of the two was powerful, they were both brave and cunning. In broad daylight, if they went to the temple to check out the flag, they would not be gone forever, right? On the other hand, it was not wise for them to act alone when they were searching the town. If something unexpected happened, like what happened the night before, it would be very dangerous to be alone. There were many abandoned houses in Chonglin town. Other than the houses around the inn that were already occupied, it was hard to tell what they would run into in the other houses. If someone was hiding a body, poison, or weapon in a secluded corner, and they were discovered by the players, there might be a fight. With Xiao Tan and Laughing Soul conducting the search, it was much safer. After all, they were both players with guns. When facing a humanoid NPC, they could fire to protect themselves. Furthermore, their combination complemented each other. If they encountered puzzle-solving elements, Laughing Soul would deal with them, and Xiao Tan would do the dirty work of moving things around. Even if they were noticed by outsiders, it would be fine. At most, they would suspect that they were looking for a place to do something dirty. They would not know that they were searching for game items. In conclusion, the plan for the day was to split into 3 groups. One to collect information, one to search for items, and the last group to follow the only clue that the system had provided. The 5 agreed to meet up at the inn before sunset. If no one showed up, the rest would come up with a plan. The morning passed quickly. In the lobby of Chonglin Inn, the seats were even more packed. The bosses from the top guilds usually went downstairs for morning tea and had their other 2 meals in the guest room. During the day, the people who sat in the main hall of the inn drinking tea and eating were basically the martial artists who lived outside the inn. The number of these people was much larger than those who stayed at the inn, so the lobby was even busier than it was in the morning. Due to the limited number of seats, the group of martial artists knew their place. Those who were there to eat left after finishing, those who were there to drink tea left after about 10 minutes. During this period of time, there were many people entering and leaving the inn. The rumors about broken sword Chahitsu had naturally spread, but most of the people sitting on the first floor were not there in the morning, so they did not know what Feng Bujue's group looked like. Furthermore, the lobby was noisy, and there were many people walking around. Therefore, when the 4 players walked down the stairs and left the inn in pairs, they did not attract much attention. Only a few people recognized them, but these people at most pulled the people around them aside and pointed at them. After Feng Bujue and Passing Rain left the inn, they walked down the road and headed north. It was almost noon and the sun was high in the sky. The 2 walked briskly for a while and they felt the heat. This kind of heat had an effect on the exhaustion of their stamina points, but it was not obvious. They walked for about 20 minutes and arrived at the northernmost border of the village. There were no more houses here, and the view was getting wider. They could see a few abandoned farmlands in the distance, and the original farmhouses had collapsed, leaving behind a pile of rotten wood and stone. They continued to head north, and the mountain that they could see before was now right in front of them. The rise and fall of the terrain became more obvious, and it was tilting upward. There was only one path left under their feet. The further they walked, the shallower the path became until it disappeared completely. At noon, the 2 had walked into the mountain. The ground under their feet was hard soil and grass, and the forest around them was getting thicker. Feng Bujue thought that entering the dense forest would make them feel hot and stuffy, but the reality was, the temperature around them was getting lower and lower. This is strange, the slope of the mountain is quite steep. It doesn't look like a building. Feng Bujue noticed that something was wrong, so he opened his mouth to comment. "Let's try walking a bit more," Passing Rain quickly replied. "Okay." Feng Bujue nodded and continued to lead the way. Even though this situation was a bit strange, there was no reason to stop exploring. Whether it was stamina or time, the 2 had plenty of time. They could walk for another 2 or 3 hours. They walked for about 10 minutes before Feng Bujue suddenly stopped and turned around to ask, "I say, did you notice?" Passing Rain asked, "What?" After entering the mountain, along the way, "I didn't see any animal tracks or excrement, not even a bird or insect." Feng Bujue said, "In fact, there wasn't even the chirping of birds or cicadas. This forest is unbelievably quiet." He paused and frowned. "And don't you think it's getting cooler?" Passing Rain heard that and thought for a few seconds before answering, "Supernatural setting?" "In any case, it's definitely not a phenomenon from a wuxiao world," Feng Bujue replied. "It could be supernatural, fantasy, or even science fiction. In any case, this forest is obviously abnormal." He looked around and said, "There are no living creatures, and the closer we get to the center, the colder it gets, because this is the forest of no return." Suddenly, a shrill female voice rang out. This sudden statement caused Passing Rain to shiver involuntarily, and her terror points fluctuated. Feng Bujue did not think much of it. He quickly turned to the source of the voice and turned to look at a large tree on the left with Passing Rain. The trunk of the tree was very thick, and the speaker was completely hidden behind the tree, leaving no trace behind. However, when Feng Bujue and Passing Rain's eyes moved to the tree, half of a waxy face slowly moved out from behind the trunk. Chapter 208. Using the word scary to describe that face was the perfect word. The face looked like an old woman who had lived for more than 300 years, and the aging process had been accelerating. To put it this way, Feng Bujue did not have the heart to comment on the face because all the words that came to his mind were harsh. He could only sigh in a more tactful manner. It's like the scene of a tragic car accident. His eyes widened and he shook his head. I can't even move my eyes away. The owner of the face behind the tree was obviously a monster in terms of setting. This kind of existence was set up by the system to be hostile to the players from the beginning. They would selectively ignore the words of the players, like the sci-fi, worldview, and car accident that came out of Feng Bujue's mouth. This monster would not comment on them, and these words would not trigger any flags or change the monster's behavior. You are looking for the Temple of the Hidden Bell? The strange face asked. Yes, Feng Bujue replied immediately. Passing Rain glanced at Feng Bujue from the corner of her eyes. She could not help but admire him. She thought to herself, he has just heard the name Temple of the Hidden Bell 2 seconds ago, but he can answer her without hesitation, and there is no sign of lying on his face, ha ha ha. The strange face laughed, and then the sound of a bell came from behind the tree. You don't have a bell, so how are you going to find it? The strange face raised her arm and poked it out from behind the tree. She was wearing a very normal white cloth shirt, and from the exposed sleeve, her clothes were very clean and neat. In Feng Bujue's imagination, the person before him would have her arm wrapped in a rotten mummy bandage, but he did not expect this. However, he did not dwell on the issue of clothing for too long because his attention was immediately attracted by the bell in the woman's hand. It was a small bell that could be held in the palm of one's hand. It was silver in color, and the sunlight that filtered through the gaps in the tree's shade shone on the bell, reflecting a rather blinding light. With this bell of yours, can we find the Temple of the Hidden Bell? Feng Bujue asked. Yes, you have to carry the bell to find the temple door, the strange face replied. Do you want it? What? Does that mean you can give it to me? Feng Bujue asked again. Sure, he. The strange face laughed again. In a way, it was scarier than when it was not laughing. Come over here and take it, and I'll give it to you. He. Sure. Feng Bujue smiled as he took out his stool from his backpack. The strange face did not know what to think. Perhaps she did not realize that Feng Bujue had taken out a weapon. When Feng Bujue was about 3 meters away from her, she asked, Wait a minute. What are you holding? Oh, this? Feng Bujue replied calmly. A stool. What are you doing with the stool? I've been standing for a long time. I want to sit down for a while, Feng Bujue replied. Since I got the bell, I'm going to sit down and rest. The strange face looked suspicious. All right. Come here. Passing Rain stood where she was. Looking at the situation, she wanted to laugh. She believed that only Feng Bujue would be able to make such a joke in this kind of atmosphere. However, Passing Rain did not let her guard down. If the monster made any sudden move to attack, Passing Rain would react instantly to help. Feng Bujue soon reached the tree. With every step he took, he placed his weight on the leg behind him. The leg that he took out first tapped the ground with the tip of his toes. After making sure there was no trap on the ground, he took the next step. What are you doing now? The strange face asked. Feng Bujue replied, stretching my legs to see if there's anything wrong with them. Don't you know if there's anything wrong with your own legs? The strange face suddenly looked vicious. Are you suspecting that I've set a trap for you? Of course not, Feng Bujue replied calmly. Whether there's something wrong with my legs or not, you need to take 2 steps to know. At this point, he imitated MJ's moonwalk and moved back a few steps. See, this is called taking 2 steps. Passing Rain finally could not help but burst out laughing. The monster was dumbfounded. What was going on? This person used the action of walking forward to move back? All right, come over here. Do you still want the bell? The strange face's eyes and tone revealed obvious eagerness and greed. Feng Bujue had basically ruled out the possibility of a trap through observation and careful observation of the surroundings, so he thought, the problem must be with the tree. Can I ask, why are you hiding behind the tree? Feng Bujue asked. Come over and see for yourself, won't you know? The strange face replied. Feng Bujue was already very close to her. He only needed to move a few meters to the side, and he would be able to see the situation behind the tree. However, just as he was about to move, the strange face saw through him and immediately shouted, Don't move! Why are you going there? To see why you're hiding behind the tree. As Feng Bujue answered, he walked around the tree while maintaining his distance. He wanted to see what was behind the tree. To his surprise, the strange face followed his movement and walked around the tree, still only showing her head and one of her arms. Don't come around. The strange face saw that the situation was not good and started to threaten him. Stick close to the tree and walk over, or I'll destroy the bell. The monster neglected one thing. When she followed Feng Bujue's movement and changed her hiding angle, Passing Rain had already entered her blind spot. At that moment, Passing Rain moved silently and approached from the other side of the tree. From Feng Bujue's angle, naturally, he could see what Passing Rain was doing, but his expression and eyes did not give away his teammates' movement. There was no sign of nervousness or guilt on his face. Okay, I'm coming over. I'm really coming. Feng Bujue raised his voice slightly and uttered some nonsense. I will take big strides over here now. He dragged out his words, but his feet did not move at all. This was to buy time and cover for Passing Rain at the same time. In fact, Passing Rain didn't need this kind of laughable cover. In just 10 seconds, she quickly and quietly circled to the angle where the strange face was hiding. The scene that greeted her eyes shocked Passing Rain. She could not help but frown. She immediately shouted at Feng Bujue, She only has a head and one arm. Her neck and arm are both grown from the tree. Don't get close to that tree. Chapter 209. Ha! I knew it! Hearing that, Feng Bujue yelled at the strange face. Demon! Show yourself! His shout was full of vigor, but he didn't seem to want to get close to the monster. The monster was straightforward. Since it couldn't pretend anymore, it gave up on this lousy disguise. The strange yellow face quickly changed, the coarse and dense wrinkles on its face turned into the texture of tree bark. Not long after, the head and the arm that were hiding behind the tree became two branches on the tree trunk. At the top of the branch that the arm turned into, there was a small bell hanging. At the same time, on the tree trunk, facing Passing Rain, two long slits the color of dirty blood suddenly appeared. It was like a pair of eyes suddenly opened, the eyelids were the bark, and under the bark there was a pair of huge black pupils. You really are a busybody. A deep voice came from inside the tree trunk, Come if you have the ability. Passing Rain didn't reply, she didn't have anything to say, she just used her actions to respond. Her holy seal sword flashed, she swung her arm diagonally. A sword aura mixed with spiritual energy suddenly shot out. It was unknown how powerful Passing Rain's attack was. It was actually able to tear a hole more than 2 meters long in the tree trunk. The tree obviously had no way of moving or dodging, and its trunk took the hit head-on. In the cut bark, dirty blood flowed out. A scream came from the tree trunk, as if the monster was experiencing great pain. Feng Bujue had already circled around to Passing Rain's side. He knew that as long as he kept a few meters away from the tree, there wouldn't be any threat, so he went around without worry. Its defense seems to be weak. Feng Bujue muttered, its attack range seems to be very low. He turned to look at Passing Rain. Then this guy's damage is probably very high. If you get close to it, you might be killed in one hit. That skill of mine doesn't have a long cooldown, but it does require a bit of mana. Passing Rain understood what Feng Bujue meant, but her ranged attacks were limited. So leave it to me, Feng Bujue said with a smile. His expression was one of anticipation. Passing Rain sheathed her sword and said, Please go ahead. You. The big tree seemed to notice Feng Bujue's malicious look and immediately asked, "You? What do you want to do? Don't be afraid. I just want to ask you a few questions," Feng Bujue said as he put down the stool. Then, he knelt on one knee and took out Miss Moxie's bad temper from his inventory. He placed it on the stool and aimed at the huge, immobile target a few meters away. Passing Rain watched from the sidelines. She had never seen a player say something like, "Don't be afraid," to a monster before, let alone imagine such a scene. "What if I don't want to answer?" the monster replied in a vicious tone. Tat tat tat, the sound of gunfire answered its question. Feng Bujue pulled the trigger lightly, and a few bullets flew out from the muzzle of the submachine gun. His gun's element was fire, and the special effect was especially suitable for destroying flesh. Obviously, whether the tree was an animal or a plant, it was a monster that was severely countered by this weapon. "Ah!" the monster roared. Just a few bullets left small sparks on its body. If not for the blood that flowed out from the tree bark to extinguish the fire, the whole thing would have burned. "If you don't want to be burned to ashes, then from now on, I'll ask you questions and you'll answer." Feng Bujue used his actions to make the monster unable to refuse. He asked, "First, tell me what kind of monster you are, and what's your name?" "I don't know," the monster replied. "Ah, you've got guts." Feng Bujue prepared to fire again. "Wait. I'm telling the truth," the monster quickly explained. "Is that so? Fine, it doesn't matter what your name is anyway." Feng Bujue raised his head and temporarily gave up on aiming. "Then, tell me, what is the meaning of the forest of no return that you mentioned earlier?" The monster thought about it for a few seconds and asked, "Will you let me go if I tell you?" "Tat tat tat, ah. Fine. I'll tell you." "Stop." The monster begged for mercy from the beating. It was silent for a while, as if waiting for the pain to subside, then it said, "Decades ago, the villagers at the small town at the foot of the mountain were very afraid of this forest, so they gave it the name Forest of No Return. No one dares to come to this forest, and even if they do, they can't get out." "Is it because there are many monsters like you in the forest?" Feng Bujue asked. "Yes, but not many." The big tree sneered. "I don't know if I'm a monster, I'm just an old tree in this forest, but because that child's resentment was too strong, the whole forest was immersed in it, and under its influence I became like this." As it said this, the crack on the bark that was cut open by Passing Rain suddenly split open, and with a splash of dirty blood, the thing inside the trunk appeared before Feng Bujue and Passing Rain's eyes. It turned out that the trunk of the tree was stuffed with dead people, and the dead people's faces were extremely gruesome, with a frightened expression frozen on their faces. Every body had limbs missing, but they were rotten but not rotten, and all the dead bodies were twisted together like braids, with blood oozing out of their 7 orifices. These villagers of the Zhongling town all reaped what they sowed, and their descendants will also suffer retribution. As the monster spoke, it closed the crack again. "You are also Taoist priests that the villagers hired to catch ghosts, right?" Feng Bujue said. "A tree demon in the mountain knows about the existence of Taoist priests in this world. Many years ago, there were many monks, wandering Taoist priests, and sorcerers who specialized in catching ghosts that came to this mountain. I can't count how many of them, but in the end they all lost their lives at the hands of that child," the monster replied. "It mentioned the Zhongling town?" Passing Rain interjected. Feng Bujue was about to ask the same question, so he asked the monster, "The town at the foot of the mountain is called Zhonglin Town, but why did you call it Zhongling Town?" "This place has always been called Zhongling Town. When did it change to Zhonglin Town?" the monster replied. Feng Bujue looked at Passing Rain and lowered his voice to say, "Decades ago, something must have happened. The truth behind the abandonment of this village might have something to do with the person who left behind the 3 words at the entrance of the village." Passing Rain followed Feng Bujue's train of thought, but for now, she could not come to a conclusion. She only replied softly, "Ask about the spirit." Feng Bujue lifted his head and asked the monster, "The child that you mentioned was killed by the villagers, right? What happened?" "You'll have to ask her yourself. I only know that her resentment was monstrous, and she hated those villagers to the bone. I presume she must have died unjustly. As for exactly how she died, I really don't know," the monster replied. "Then where is she now?" Feng Bujue asked again. "The Temple of the Hidden Bell," the monster answered. "Where is the Temple of the Hidden Bell? How do we get there?" Feng Bujue asked. "Take my bell and hold it before your eyes. As long as you face the direction of the temple, the bell will ring." "Oh." Feng Bujue's eyes moved to the branch with the bell. "Is it possible for you to throw the thing to me?" The monster replied, "I can't do that." I see." Feng Bujue suddenly stopped speaking. He put on a shocked expression and pointed to the other side of the tree. "Ah, what is that?" Even Passing Rain was shocked. Although she was standing right next to Feng Bujue, their vision was basically the same, and she did not see anything out of the ordinary, but Feng Bujue's shocked expression and tone were so realistic that she could not help but feel nervous. It was unknown what happened to the demonic tree, but its eyes suddenly moved along the bark and turned to the other side, just like a human turning their head. At that moment, Feng Bujue immediately activated body enhancement spell and rushed forward. With lightning speed, he successfully stole the bell, pulled it off the branch, and retreated to a safe distance. The demonic tree's last hope was shattered at that moment because when the player got close to the bell, that was its only chance to attack, but that was no longer possible. Feng Bujue used a very childish trick that was similar to Watch Your Back. To get the quest item. Item name, bell item type, plot item quality. Normal function. Locate the location of the Temple of the Hidden Bell. Can be taken out of the scenario. No remark. This small bell appears to have a connection with a powerful evil spirit. Okay, it's done. Let's go, Feng Bujue told Passing Rain. After he succeeded, the first thing he did was deactivate body enhancement spell and put away the stool and gun. It was as if he felt that there was nothing valuable left on the demonic tree that he could squeeze out of it. "Are we not going to kill it?" Passing Rain asked. "Let's save some bullets." As Feng Bujue answered, he raised the bell, extended his arm, and slowly turned it with his body as the axis. When he turned it to the northwest, the bell suddenly moved twice on its own, and it made a tinkling sound. Feng Bujue turned his head and shared a look with Passing Rain. The two did not say anything. Ignoring the monster behind them, they moved in the direction that the bell had pointed at without turning back. Once the two of them were far away, the demonic tree muttered in a low voice, "Sigh. When the two of you are killed by that child, she will still bring the bell back and hang it on my body." After saying this, all the strange phenomena on the tree trunk disappeared, and it returned to the appearance of an ordinary tree. Chapter 210. On the other hand, when Feng Bujue's group was exploring the mountain, Xiao Tan and Laughing Soul's search was progressing smoothly. Actually, there was not much of a target, so they were quite relaxed. Even if they found nothing after a whole day, it could not be helped. That was how Thriller Paradise was. If they were lucky, perhaps they could find a piece of excellent equipment in an inconspicuous place, and the process of obtaining it was not that difficult. If they were not lucky, it was normal for them to find nothing after the whole scenario. Their search began from the east side of the town. They searched room by room. Although most of the abandoned houses were empty, they could not rule out the possibility that there were props hidden in the dusty bottles, wooden boxes, and on the beams, under the floorboards, inside the walls, and even the tattered bed. In any case, for a game like this, one had to explore it with the spirit of playing Zelda without reading the guide. There is something I wish to ask you." When Xiao Tan asked Laughing Soul, he was lifting the lid of a large wooden pot on the stove. It was unclear what he expected to find inside the pot. 2 silver coins? Fine, I don't have a boyfriend. Laughing Soul was rummaging through a cupboard that was filled with spider webs. That's not what I wanted to ask you. Laughing Soul did not even turn her head when she answered, like she was not paying attention. Then what is it? Why would you use such a weird tone to ask me when we are alone? She seemed to be reminded of something and added, I'm warning you, I'm not a casual person. What are you thinking? Xiao Tan said. I want to ask, is Xiao Lingu your real name? Yes, why? Gu as in ancient times? Yes, Laughing Soul replied. Xiao as in petty, Ling as in spirit. From the way she explained her name, one could see that she had a different personality. Xiao Tan frowned and looked like he was thinking. Laughing Soul was still talking. Laughing Soul's name is actually just an inverted name with a word before it. When you heard my cousin call me Little Bone, you should have guessed that my real name is pronounced Gu, right? If a girl's name has this word, it should be in her surname. It's nothing more than Gu. She was nagging, but she still said in an impatient tone, You're so stupid. Is your head just for decoration? Think more when you encounter problems. Xiao Tan didn't care about what she said. In fact, he was thinking about other things and didn't really listen. It's strange. There's an ancestral rule in my family that says, don't make friends with people with the surname Gu, Xiao Tan said. Huh! Laughing Soul was stunned when she heard that. Ha! She suddenly laughed. This is such a coincidence. My family has a rule as well. It says that for the descendants of the Gu family, as long as they have a friend with the surname Wang, there is no need to be courteous with them. I'm not kidding, Xiao Tan said seriously. I'm not kidding either. I'm serious, Laughing Soul replied with a mocking smile. But Wang is a common surname, Xiao Tan said. Laughing Soul reached out to knock lightly on Xiao Tan's head. That's why who would treat this kind of ancestral rule seriously? Idiot. She had no intention of attacking, so she was not stopped by the system. Xiao Tan shrugged. You're right. It's probably because one of my ancestors had a grudge against the Gu family, and they did something stupid. That's why they left this. Before he finished, he was hit again. What now? You mean my ancestors also did something stupid? Laughing Soul said with annoyance. Fine, just pretend I didn't say anything, Xiao Tan replied. In order not to be hit again, he climbed onto the stove after saying that and leaped onto the beam of the roof. Now that he had mastered the basics of agility, this kind of height was nothing to him. By the way, since it's just the two of us, I have something to ask you, Laughing Soul said. I don't have a girlfriend, Xiao Tan replied. Plus, I'm a very casual person. Ha. Laughing Soul laughed drily as a response to this joke. Then she said, seriously, is the captain the kind of player who doesn't spend money when he plays games? We don't play games that charge money. In any case, in the few games that we've interacted with, I've never seen him use in-game items. Xiao Tan crawled on the roof that was covered in dust. He knocked on the roof inch by inch, trying to check whether there was a hollow layer underneath. But for games that require money, he would often buy a monthly or even a quarterly membership. It seems like he thinks it's too troublesome to recharge. Oh, in other words, it's not that he's stingy, but it depends on whether he wants to spend money on the game or not. Laughing Soul asked. How should I put this? Brother Ju is a very complicated person. It's hard to tell what his principles are. Xiao Tan said. It seems like whenever he realizes he's about to cross the line, he will set up a new boundary. That sounds like he's trying to break the limit, Laughing Soul said. Ha! Xiao Tan chuckled. Suddenly, with a cracking sound, the roof beam broke from the middle. This was probably caused by years of neglect, and the wood had rotted from the inside. Xiao Tan was kneeling on the roof. When the beam broke, his face was facing downward, so his reaction was relatively quick. He adjusted his posture in the air easily. Before he landed, he changed into a standing position and landed on his feet. Unexpectedly, when he came into contact with the floor of the house, he suddenly felt the soles of his feet soften, as if he had stepped on empty air. Then there was a series of creaking sounds. It was the sound of the floor collapsing. It turned out that the kitchen floor of this empty house was less than half a meter thick. Below that, it was completely suspended in the air. Due to the passage of time, the wood had rotted, so it was natural for it to be weaker. When Xiao Tan and Laughing Soul were walking on it normally, the floor could handle their weight, but now that Xiao Tan was falling from the roof and was standing on the floor, the two broken beams carried a considerable weight. The floor could not handle the weight and it collapsed. Laughing Soul's first reaction was fast. She immediately reached out to grab Xiao Tan. In that split second, she grabbed the man's wrist tightly. However, she was a girl, and her weight was much lighter than Xiao Tan's. Furthermore, the collapse of the floor had affected the whole room. Laughing Soul's feet were not steady, so she had no place to grab onto. Therefore, she also fell down together with him. The two fell into a dark abyss, and in that moment, they were several hundred feet down. They had no idea whether it was a mountain of swords or boulders. But from the distance they were falling, even if they hit the ground, they would not survive. Chapter 2:11. The feeling of falling was enough to wake a person up from a nightmare. It would make the heart tighten, limbs freeze, and scream. Strangely enough, when the two of them landed, only Laughing Soul made a sound. Xiao Tan, the man who was easily flustered, was strangely calm at this moment of life and death. In the blink of an eye, he reached out and grabbed Laughing Soul's wrist. Then, using his own strength, he pulled Laughing Soul to the position above him. In a dangerous situation, his instinct was to pull his teammate up and use himself as a human cushion. This went to show that the man was a good person. Of course, if the two were falling into a bottomless abyss, this action would have been pointless. It would have been the difference between life and death. Thankfully, the feeling of falling only lasted for several seconds. With a splash, the two fell into the water. In the darkness, the feeling of falling stopped. Xiao Tan felt a chill run down his back, and then pain and suffocation overwhelmed him. However, at the time, he was overjoyed because he knew that if they fell into the water, they would not die yet. The impact of the fall was huge, and after they hit the surface, they kept sinking. Xiao Tan knew that they were not out of danger yet. He held his breath, and when the sinking slowed down, he started to kick. He did not let go of Laughing Soul's wrist. After they rose a little, he used his left hand to hug Laughing Soul and his right hand to push against the water. Not long after that, their heads poked out of the water. Once they were out of the water, they sucked in a deep breath. "I know how to swim." That was the first thing that came out of Laughing Soul's mouth after she took 2 breaths. "You should have said that earlier." "I'm so tired," Xiao Tan said as he let go of Laughing Soul. He kept a distance from her and started to paddle with his hands. "Say your head." She smacked Xiao Tan's forehead. "Do you think I have the chance to say that?" "Aya." Xiao Tan groaned from the pain. "Then, when I carried you and swam up, how come you didn't move at all? Since you're already talking about being a lifeguard, I can only play along with you." Laughing Soul replied, "What if I try my best to struggle, and you continue to be so stubborn? What if both of us drown?" Oh. Xiao Tan continued, "By the way, are you okay?" "Yes," Laughing Soul replied. "I want to punch you." Xiao Tan thought Laughing Soul was blaming him for dragging her down, so he said helplessly, "You can't blame me for this. How would I know the beams would break and the floor would collapse?" "Ha ha!" Laughing Soul laughed drily in response. She didn't have anything to refute at the moment. After all, she was the one who pulled Xiao Tan's wrist, which was why they fell together. If her first reaction had been to jump back, perhaps she would still be up there. Then she could go find a rope or something to save Xiao Tan as well. It was better than the two of them being trapped in this place with no one to help them. At that moment, there was no light source around Xiao Tan and Laughing Soul. There was only a small bit of light above their heads, and it came from the hole that they had fallen through. Unfortunately, the hole was indoors and not out in the open, so the small bit of light was unable to illuminate this place. Even though they were conversing, there was only darkness before their eyes, and they could not see each other. However, since they were so close and there was the sound of water splashing, they knew each other's location even without seeing each other. Laughing Soul had used the darkness to knock on Xiao Tan's head. "Oh no, my flashlight was in the previous scenario." Xiao Tan was about to say that his light source was broken when he suddenly felt Laughing Soul place something on his head. With a click, a bright light source appeared. A yellow miner's hat appeared on Xiao Tan's head. You still have this?" Xiao Tan asked. He still remembered that in the scenario where he first met Laughing Soul had wanted to use this thing to trade for his flashlight. "Yes," Laughing Soul replied. "I remember I used this to trade for your flashlight, but you gave me one and told me something like, 'It's silly to wear it, so keep it for yourself.'" Laughing Soul replied, "I remember I used this to trade for a flashlight, but you gave me one and said something like, 'It's silly to wear it, so keep it.'" "Then, why did you keep this until now? This kind of equipment has lost its value a long time ago," Xiao Tan said. "I hate being rejected the most," Laughing Soul said. She then knocked on Xiao Tan's head that was wearing the miner's hat. "Look at you, wearing this kind of silly equipment, you look so compatible. I really miss the time when I first met you." Xiao Tan had a bitter expression. "The Laughing Soul who called me Brother Xiao Tan and politely traded equipment with me is gone forever." Laughing Soul felt like her dark history had been exposed, so she changed the topic angrily. "Stop wasting time. Quick, turn around and see if there's a place to stand. Do you want to stay in the water until you run out of energy?" Xiao Tan shrunk his neck and really stopped talking. He turned slowly in the water to shine the light on his surroundings and above him. No matter what, the miner's hat was quite useful in this situation. At least it was a lighting device that could be operated without holding it up. With the movement of the light, the two of them could finally see the situation around them. The pool that they were in was not that big. There was a stone bank about 10 meters away. Above the pool was a vertical cylindrical tunnel, which was the path that they had fallen down. The entrance at the top of the tunnel was the hole in the empty house's kitchen, and the bottom of the tunnel looked like it was expanding. Overall, the space above the pool was like an inverted funnel. It was impossible to return the way they came. The pool was surrounded by stone walls, and only one side of it was a stone bank. Xiao Tan and Laughing Soul had no choice. The most important thing was to find a place to rest. The two swam over one after the other. When they reached the shore, they were both gasping for air from exhaustion. They collapsed to the ground to rest. The series of events had only happened in a few minutes, but they had used up quite a bit of their life points and stamina points. Falling into the water from such a height caused Xiao Tan to lose 67% of his life points, and Laughing Soul lost 59%. Of course, that was not much. In real life, if they jumped into the water from such a height, they might die instantly. The in-game characters had better physical fitness than normal people to survive. Staying afloat and swimming to the bank had used up more than 300 stamina points. For two level 17 players, that was almost 20% of their stamina points. "I say, have we found some kind of ancient tomb?" Xiao Tan turned to look behind him. There was a long path that led to an unknown place. "What? Are you fantasizing about me taking off my clothes to train with you?" Laughing Soul replied. Actually, she was the one who was being shameless. I was going to say that we might be able to find equipment, skills, or hidden quests here," Xiao Tan said. "But you suddenly said that." Before he could finish, he was hit on his head again. Even through the miner's hat, it still hurt. "So, you also had the wrong idea?" Laughing Soul huffed. You sure use the word, also. Sigh. Fine. Fine. It's all my fault, okay? Xiao Tan had been bullied quite harshly. This underground pool was as cold as ice. Both of them were soaked, and the chill seeped into their bones. After sitting for a while, they could not help but shiver. Therefore, the two did not stay there for too long. They tried their best to wring the water out of their clothes and rest for a while. When the tiredness disappeared, they stood up and walked down the only path. Perhaps the rocks in this tunnel had the property of absorbing light. After walking for a short distance, the two of them realized that as long as they were a little further ahead, there was only a dark shadow. As long as the light went beyond 10 meters, it would almost completely disappear. Another thing worth noting was that this road was not uphill, but slanted downwards. When they fell into the pool, they were already very deep underground, and this path led to an even lower place. What was going on? Could this place lead directly to the Senluo Palace? After walking for another 10 minutes, the path stopped falling, and it was basically level. The tunnel became wider and wider. Without realizing it, the height and width of the tunnel had reached a size that could fit a subway train. Do you smell that? Laughing Soul suddenly asked. The tunnel was steamy, and the smell did not dissipate. About 1 minute ago, she had smelled a strange stench. That was not a good sign. Xiao Tan studied Laughing Soul for a few seconds with a curious gaze. Don't tell me you did that. I didn't even know this game could be played. Did your head? Laughing Soul's face was red. She yanked off his cap and scolded him harshly as she knocked on his head. Fine, looks like I misunderstood. Idiot? Idiot. Scumbag. Hey, you won't be censored if you say that, Phew. Laughing Soul took a deep breath and tried to calm down. In the future, I will go to the auction house to see if there are any paper fans. My hands are hurting from all the slapping. I'm sorry, Xiao Tan said. My head is too hard. Is that what you need to apologize for? Laughing Soul slammed the cap back on his head. In any case, it's all my fault, okay? Xiao Tan said. You don't have to use violence, do you? Can't you use words to solve the problem? Brother Xiao Tan. Laughing Soul interrupted him with a smile. Her tone was kind, but her eyes were murderous. Can you please turn back and kill yourself? You'd better hit me, roar. Suddenly, a roar that clearly came from a non-human creature interrupted their conversation. No one knew if the monster was annoyed by their conversation, or if it had discovered the presence of prey and wanted to hunt for food. Either way, the loud sound of some kind of giant creature crawling along the ground came from the tunnel in front of them, and it quickly approached the two players. Chapter 212. This underground cave was quite a large map. The tunnels intersected with each other, and there were many flags in the cave. There were 3 entrances in total, and they were hidden at 3 different corners of Chonglin Town. No matter which entrance they took, when they first entered, there was only one path to take. However, after passing through some monsters and traps, the number of paths would increase, and the various rewards would be distributed at the end or the middle of these paths. Theoretically speaking, the pool that Xiao Tan and Laughing Soul fell into could be reached by players who did not know how to swim. Even though the middle of the pool was deep, the water around it was shallow. Even if they held their breath and swam to the bottom of the pool, they could walk up because the distance was not that far. Furthermore, even if the players ran out of air and choked on water, they would not lose consciousness. However, their life points would continue to drop, and they would suffer from the feeling of drowning. If they continued to move down the path next to the pool, they would be ambushed by monsters. Sounds like something is coming. Hearing the strange noise coming from the front, Xiao Tan uttered another useless sentence. That was what I wanted to ask you earlier, Laughing Soul added. There are no plants on the wall, but there is a stench in the cave. This means that some kind of animal is roaming around. There was no smell when we first walked down the path, but here, the tunnel widens. This means that the animal is very large and can only move around here. As she spoke, she took out the MP5 from her inventory. She attached her flashlight to the gun and aimed it at the darkness ahead, ready to fire. Then we'd better run, Xiao Tan said. If we run back to a place where the tunnel is narrower, it won't be able to catch up to us. And then? Laughing Soul turned to ask. This is the only way. Even if the pool is temporarily safe, we won't be able to leave. You have a point. Xiao Tan also took out his Winchester shotgun and loaded it. Actually, if they ran back, it was not a bad idea. After all, the players did not need to worry about food or sleep in the scenario. As long as they were not attacked by monsters, their survival was not threatened. When the sun set and their teammates realized that they had not returned to the inn, they would naturally come out to look for them. However, Feng Bujue had no idea what had happened to Xiao Tan and Laughing Soul. He would not have thought that the two were trapped inside a giant hole. He would have guessed that they had been captured by NPCs. Therefore, even if Feng Bujue and the others went from room to room to room to search for the two, they would only be able to roughly check if there was anyone in each empty room. They might not be able to find the hole in the ground in the remote empty room. In any case, there was a high chance that no one would discover them until the end of the scenario. That was Laughing Soul's prediction. It's coming. It's very close. Laughing Soul stared at the darkness and said in a low voice. Both her and Xiao Tan's detection specialization were E rank, but as a marksmanship specialization player, her vision was clearly superior to Xiao Tan's. When Xiao Tan heard this, he also aimed his gun and prepared to shoot. Roar. There was another roar mixed with a loud rumble. A monster the size of a car entered their line of sight. The monster was so large that it was hard to get a full view of it. However, its skin glistened under the light, showing the outline of its back. It looked like a giant crocodile. However, the monster's head was slightly different from a crocodile. It looked more like a dog, but the roar it made sounded like a bear's. With a bang, the shotgun in Xiao Tan's hand fired. At a short distance, this should have been a powerful shot, but at that moment, it failed to penetrate the monster's shell. At most, the shrapnel embedded itself into the crocodile's back, but it was unable to harm its flesh. Almost at the same time, Laughing Soul's MP5 started to fire, but her attack was more efficient and targeted. She aimed at the monster's eyes, and her shots were rhythmic. The giant crocodile knew that it would be bad if its eyes were shot, so it opened its jaws and kept shaking its head to evade the bullets as it continued to charge forward. Retreat. That one word from Laughing Soul was simple and clear. Xiao Tan understood what she meant. He knew that she was not talking about retreat, but retreat as we fight. Therefore, he fired as he reloaded. He retreated with Laughing Soul and continued to attack the enemy. The monster was attacked. Even though it did not suffer much damage, it was not completely unaffected. Furthermore, to protect its eyes from being attacked, it kept shaking its head, and its crawling speed was naturally affected. With the giant crocodile slowed down, Xiao Tan and Laughing Soul had more time to deal with it. After all, they had long-range weapons and plenty of ammo. As long as they maintained a distance of more than 5 meters, they would be able to kill the monster. The appearance of this monster was intimidating. It was quite scary to be able to charge at them in such a narrow and dark environment. If the players ran with their backs facing it, the sense of urgency of being chased would be very strong. However, in terms of setting, this monster was not that strong. In fact, it was easier to deal with compared to the tree demon that Feng Bujue and Passing Rain had encountered on the mountain. Its speed was average, and it would slow down with some suppression. Its defense was high, but its weakness was very obvious, and it could be easily seen through by the players. Its attack style was simple, and it was purely physical, so its attack power might not be able to kill the players in one hit. Most importantly, the surrounding environment had basically given the players a clear way to deal with it. Players who only knew how to fight in close combat could choose to turn and run. Once they reached a spot where the monster could not catch up, they would be safe. Players with long-range attacks, needless to say, could use their long-range weapons to slow down the monster and kite it. After all, the tunnel was so small, and the target was so big that it would be harder to miss than to hit it. In reality, if one knew about the flag beforehand, it would be easier to turn and run. This was because the monster would be stuck somewhere in the tunnel and lose its ability to move. Then, it would be much easier to kill it. This kind of guiding setting seemed to make the battle too easy, but in fact, from the system's point of view, this was reasonable. For a hidden tunnel like this that was obviously hiding some kind of reward or plot flag, the system would not give the players a path that would lead them to certain death. If that was the case, it would have been better to set it so that they would fall to their death. Therefore, when the players had depleted 2/3 of their life points and a certain amount of stamina points, the battle that followed would not be too difficult, unless it was a nightmare difficulty, roar. Sure enough, after another roar, the two people who had been kiting the monster for 5 minutes discovered rather gloomily that, as the monster chased after them, it got stuck in a place where the rocks converged and couldn't move anymore. Chapter 213. After obtaining the quest item, Feng Bujue had to raise the small bell every 3 minutes to reconfirm the direction. He led Passing Rain like that for half an hour, but they still had not found the temple of the hidden bell. The forest seemed endless, and the terrain was strange and complicated. The temperature around them kept dropping. Based on their physical senses, the temperature should have dropped below 10 degrees Celsius. Feng Bujue's outfit was quite good at keeping out the cold. On Passing Rain's side, she was wearing a pair of long pants, but she was only wearing a sleeveless cotton vest. In this kind of environment, naturally, she would feel cold, and the exhaustion of her stamina points would be greater than Feng Bujue's. Unfortunately, I can't give you the jacket. Feng Bujue walked for a while before stopping to grab the bell. As he raised the item, he said, "Even my shirt and vest are better than your sleeveless outfit." "After all, purple does not suit me," Passing Rain replied softly. "Is that so?" Feng Bujue continued. "But I still suggest you change into an outfit that is suitable for the spring and autumn season. If you run into an extremely cold or extremely hot environment, you should be able to handle it." He steadied his arm, held the bell horizontally, and started to spin slowly. Xiao Tan's assassin outfit is not bad, but Laughing Soul's outfit is a bit too thick. When the temperature is around 30 degrees, she will have to suffer the additional exhaustion of her stamina point. "Let's wait until this scenario is over," Passing Rain said. "Earlier, I was only considering whether the outfit would affect the movement during combat, so when I was browsing the market, I randomly picked an outfit that was closer to the front, but now it looks like I was too careless." She said thoughtfully, "If I buy again, I'll have to choose carefully. It is necessary to adapt to various temperatures, and it would be best if it has a storage function or camouflage effect." As she said that, she realized that Feng Bujue was looking at her with a strange expression. "What's wrong?" Passing Rain asked. She did not avoid Feng Bujue's gaze, and used her usual cold gaze to return the man's gaze. "I've noticed one thing," Yi Zichen said. By then, Feng Bujue had already put the bell away. He made a gesture to signal for Passing Rain to follow him. Then he continued to move forward. "When it's just the two of us, you talk a lot more. You think I'm long-winded?" Passing Rain asked as she walked. "That's not it," Feng Bujue said. "From a psychological point of view, there are many explanations for this situation. Maybe you're hiding some kind of uneasiness, or maybe it's because your guard against me is lower. Watch your step." When he stepped over a crack in the rock, he reminded, "For example, what you said just now. If there was someone who wasn't very familiar with you, maybe you wouldn't say it out loud. Instead, you would say it in your heart. Because there is a sense of trust between us, You can think and share your thoughts with me. We don't know each other that well, Passing Rain replied. What he said was correct. In reality, they had only known each other for less than a week. I should say that I'm not familiar with you, Feng Bujue said, and you've read my book, so you should have a certain level of understanding of me. That's true, Passing Rain said. But you're very different from the Bujue that I imagined. Huh? Feng Bujue laughed. In what way? Let me guess, it's the appearance that gave you a big psychological shock? No, in terms of appearance you are better than I expected. I thought you would have a face that was unusually harsh and mean, Passing Rain replied. What kind of logic is that? Yes. Passing Rain did not deny it. But after meeting you in person, I realized that my judgment of your personality is so wrong. Oh? Then what kind of person would the detective novelist in your imagination be? Feng Bujue asked. First, his level of narcissism would be about 1/10 of yours. That is indeed a problem, but unfortunately, I can't change it. Second, he should be someone who is so rational that it's close to coldness. Am I not that kind of person? You can be rational and have a cold side. Passing Rain hesitated. But most of the time, it's hard to say. Oh, what else is the biggest difference from your imagination? Do you think this is some kind of reader meeting? Haha. Do I look like someone who would participate in that kind of activity? I don't want to continue this conversation. If you have similar questions, I'll tell you when we're really mature people, Passing Rain said. How long will that take? Feng Bujue asked. I don't know. Maybe a few weeks, maybe a few months, Passing Rain replied. Or maybe we'll never be friends. We'll never be acquaintances? Is that even possible? Feng Bujue was confused. Yes, after this period of interaction, I've realized that you have more and more personality traits that I dislike. If this continues, when those traits accumulate to a certain level, I believe leaving our social circle will be a good choice for both of us. There were not many people in the world who would say something like that directly to another person's face, and Passing Rain was that kind of person. From this, one could see that her personality was definitely not normal. In fact, in real life, she did have a very serious problem when it came to social interaction. And in this world, when someone said something like that to their face, 99% of them would be annoyed. 80% of them would grumble internally, "Who do you think you are?" But Feng Bujue lived up to his reputation as a weirdo. His eyes glowed and he replied happily, "Wow! You're so understanding. If everyone was like you, how wonderful would my life be? How many meaningless social activities would I be able to skip?" Ding-ling! Ding-ling! The sudden ringing of the bell interrupted their conversation. Feng Bujue did not put the quest item into his backpack. When he was not using it, he only put it in the inner pocket of his shirt. This little bell would not ring if he did not deliberately shake it. Even if he jumped a few times while walking, it would not make a sound. But at this time, the bell rang on its own. We're finally here. Feng Bujue immediately took the bell out of his pocket and held it in his hand. The bell seemed to be alive as it kept ringing. If Feng Bujue did not hold it tightly, the item would have jumped out of his hand. Suddenly, a bone-chilling cold attacked, causing the temperature to drop to freezing point. At the same time, the surrounding scenery suddenly changed. The trees, grass, and stones around the two of them began to appear and disappear. Some trees suddenly became saplings, and some directly disappeared. The grass and stones, on the other hand, changed their positions and shapes strangely. This scene, to describe it more vividly, was like watching a silent movie. Suddenly, two sets of scenes were edited together and repeated. Although these two sets of scenes were filmed in the same place, they were filmed at different times. Feng Bujue and Passing Rain were not unfamiliar with this situation. They did not need to communicate to know that this was a ghost. These days, ghosts that did not have spatial and illusory abilities would be embarrassed to call themselves malicious ghosts. Woo! Woo woo! A girl's cry sounded. Feng Bujue and Passing Rain heard the cry and immediately turned around. The scene that appeared in front of them would make anyone's heart sink. There was a thick wooden stake stuck into the ground, and around the stake was a pile of firewood. A girl about 10 years old was tied to the stake, and the thing that bound her small body was thick iron chains. Woo woo! I beg you! Let me go! Woo woo! It hurts! I want my mommy! The little girl cried as she begged repeatedly. Kill her! Burn this monster to death! It's this Jinx's fault. The Dragon King has stopped raining. My father has tuberculosis. It's all because of this little bee ****. Jinx, my family's crops have all died because of you. Burn her. My child was born with a limp. It's all because of you, monster. More curses rang in their ears. There were men, women, old and young, but they could only hear the voices and not see the people. From the content of the words, it was clear that it was this group of people who had tied up the little girl. With regards to the identity of these people, based on the information provided by the tree monster, it was confirmed that they were the villagers from Chonglin Town. Woo woo! Ling Er did not harm anyone. Woo woo! I beg you! I want my mommy! The little girl was still crying, but the curses around her did not stop. Obviously, this group of people just wanted to vent their emotions. They would not listen to any explanation. It was not until a torch was tossed into the pile of firewood that the curses stopped. In its place was the little girl's heart-wrenching wail. Until the last moment, the little girl was still crying and begging, but soon after a series of coughs, she stopped making any sound. Replay of death. Replay of death? Feng Bujue and Passing Rain turned to look at each other at the same time. They said the same thing in unison, but one used a declarative tone while the other's tone was filled with uncertainty. They thought that this sad performance would end soon, but it had just begun. The scenery before them changed again. The pile of fire suddenly rose high into the air to form a wall of fire. After it dissipated, a small temple appeared before them. The temple door was closed. From the outside, the building was about 200 square meters. There was probably only one temple for the Buddha statue. It could not have been split into many rooms. There was a plaque hanging before the small temple, Temple of the Hidden Bell. More conversations drifted into the ears of the two players, but this time, it was no longer loud curses. It sounded more like hushed whispers. Now that the monster is dead, why is the trouble in the village increasing? Yes. I heard someone went up the mountain to collect firewood yesterday, but they did not return. That's already the 5th one. That's right. Also, the hunter Ol Chun and his wife died together at home last night. The whole house was covered in blood. I'm afraid the monster's soul has returned to seek revenge, right? But that day, everyone buried the remaining ashes under the Temple of the Hidden Bell. With the protection of the temple, what kind of monster can cause trouble? What's the use of that small temple? I see that the monster's mana is very strong. I have to invite an eminent monk to perform a ritual. Otherwise, no one in our village will be able to escape. These voices floated in the air, and no one knew where they came from. In any case, Feng Bujue and Like Rain heard every word clearly. After this conversation ended, many figures walked out from behind them. Some of them were monks wearing kasayas, some were Taoists wearing Taoist robes, and some looked like down-and-out Jianghu characters. Some of them were holding prayer beads and wooden fish, some were holding horsetail whisk swords, and some were carrying baskets of strange clothes. On their backs were a circle of peachwood swords, as if they were singing a big play. However, that group of people all had a common characteristic. That is, their faces were deathly pale. Furthermore, on their deathly pale faces, there was a faint smile that was not a smile on their faces. They appeared from behind Feng Bujue and Like Rain and staggered toward the entrance of the Temple of the Hidden Bell. It did not take long for them to brush past the two players. When they passed by the two, each of them would turn around to take a look, as if they knew there was something here. This kind of situation was rare in the replays of death scenes. At that moment, like Rain was holding Holy Seal in her hand, and she was in a defensive posture. She was obviously nervous. Even her hand that held the sword was shaking. Without realizing it, she had been infected by the scary atmosphere around her, so it was normal for her to react this way. At that moment, a steady hand pressed lightly on like Rain's hand. Feng Bujue turned around, and there was no fear on his face. His expression was as calm as ever. Take a deep breath to slow down your heartbeat. Open the menu to check your terror points and chase away the images in your mind. His instructions were simple, and everyone understood them, but not everyone could think of doing so in the face of fear. After Like Rain heard that, she soon calmed down, and her terror points dropped from 70%. Such a reliable man. This was not said by Like Rain but by Feng Bujue himself. After saying that, he even laughed. That must be what you're thinking right now, right? A little, Like Rain replied, but there was condescension in her eyes. Does that mean that we're one step closer to acquaintances? Before you said that yourself, perhaps, Like Rain replied. But now it has become reliable at the crucial moment, but he's annoying because he thinks he's smart. Fine. Feng Bujue shrugged like he did not care that much. As the two of them spoke, the figures had already passed through the main door of the Temple of the Hidden Bell. This scene clearly hinted that these people who came to perform rituals, no matter what religion they believed in, tools they used, or methods they used, in the end they were all killed by this malicious ghost. This scene of death reappeared, and it ended there. The surroundings returned to normal, and when the players looked at things, they no longer felt like they were watching a movie with frames missing. However, the temperature did not rise. It was still close to zero, and the two could even breathe white air out of their mouth. The Temple of the Hidden Bell before them did not disappear along with the other illusions, but turned into a physical object. The bell in Feng Bujue's hand stopped moving and stopped ringing. If you can't stand the cold. Feng Bujue did not finish the sentence. Like Rain cut him off. In your dreams. How did you know what I was going to say? Feng Bujue asked. Perhaps I was going to ask you, do you want me to start a fire? Passing Rain turned her head and glanced at him. Do you think that trying to cover it up will make it more conspicuous? Will it increase my impression of you? Feng Bujue pursed his lips, and there was some hope in his eyes, but Like Rain continued to stare at him with that murderous gaze. 2 seconds later, Feng Bujue turned around like nothing had happened. Okay, we've finally found the key point to push the plot forward. I'll go in first. As he walked, he said, even though it's daytime, based on my observation, this specter is not affected by time. We'd better be careful. Like Rain sighed and did not say anything. She followed him into the temple. Hey, isn't this setting a bit too cunning? It's a waste of bullets. Xiao Tan looked at the giant crocodile's body. If you listened to me and ran, wouldn't it be the same when you're here? After Laughing Soul knocked on Xiao Tan's head, she grumbled, too late. Several minutes ago, when the monster was stuck, the difficulty of killing it had dropped to a level that could be ignored. Although the monster kept opening its bloody mouth and shaking its head violently, it was an immobile target. Since the players were shooting from a fixed position, they did not have to shoot while moving, so it was easy to take it down. The two killed the giant crocodile and exhausted quite a bit of stamina points. On the way back, they had used up quite a lot of ammo. The monsters in Thriller Paradise would not drop equipment, so there was nothing to be gained. In other words, since they fell into the pool, they had not gained anything. If anything, they had lost quite a bit. This was undeniably a factor that affected their morale. However, Laughing Soul was someone who refused to admit defeat, and Xiao Tan was more easygoing. He did not mind the loss that much. Therefore, their team's mentality and emotions were not affected much. Since it's dead at this spot, it won't budge. Laughing Soul looked at the crocodile's body and said, "We'll have to climb over its back." This part of the tunnel was blocked by the monster's body, but the crocodile's body was flat. There was a gap between its back and the top of the tunnel, and it should be enough for the players to crawl through. "Then you go first," Shao Tan said. "Why me? What if you're stuck there? I can push from behind." "Fine. I was wrong. I'll go first." As Shao Tan begged for mercy, he hugged his head and ran toward the crocodile's body. Even though the crocodile's skin looked slippery, the monster's back was riddled with holes, and there were plenty of shrapnel embedded in it. When Shao Tan crawled over, he felt quite uncomfortable. After he crawled over, he turned back to shout, "It's okay. You should be fine. I'll strangle you when I come over." This was the reply that came from Laughing Soul's end. Chapter 214. After crawling over the giant crocodile's body, Laughing Soul and Shao Tan continued to move forward. Since they had already traversed this path before, when they moved forward again, they subconsciously picked up their pace. Several minutes later, the two passed the place where they first encountered the monster. After walking for a while, the two of them suddenly opened up. This gradually widened tunnel finally connected to a very spacious cave. The ceiling and floor of the cave had stalactite. Under the shine of the light, the crystals glowed with different colors and shapes. It was quite a sight to behold. Due to the rugged and uneven stone walls, it was impossible to see the whole picture of the cave at a glance. "Let's split up to see if there are any tunnels that lead to other places," Laughing Soul said. Shao Tan nodded and pointed to his side. "Then I'll go that way." Then he walked away. They both had lighting devices, and the cave had good sound transmission. As long as they did not run into a fork, they did not need to worry about being separated. Therefore, Laughing Soul did not waste time and quickly moved in another direction. Unfortunately, Laughing Soul was not that lucky. The path that she took soon reached a dead end. After crossing a patch of potholes, a relatively large pool appeared before her. The size was similar to the one that she had fallen into earlier. However, the ceiling of this cave was sealed, and the walls that surrounded the pool on three sides announced that this was a dead end. She turned back and soon reached the place where she had parted with Shao Tan. Then she headed in the direction that Shao Tan had taken. It did not take long for them to see the light and Shao Tan's elongated shadow behind a rock before them. Shao Tan heard her approaching footsteps and poked his head out from the corner. "Did you find anything over there?" "There's no path," Laughing Soul answered and then asked, "What about you? What are you standing there for?" "I think I found a door," Shao Tan replied. "Oh." As Laughing Soul spoke, she reached Shao Tan's side. She also saw the so-called door. It was an octagonal sphere. The surface of the sphere had a metallic texture, and it was larger than a fridge. It blocked the entrance of a tunnel. On the side of the device that faced them, there was a piece of metal in the middle. The color was obviously different. When touched, a game menu would appear before the player's eyes. With just one look, it was obvious that this was purely a game design, and it had nothing to do with the scenario. "Is this a puzzle?" Laughing Soul asked. "Use your hand to touch that spot." Shao Tan pointed at the metal with a different color. Laughing Soul looked at him and took one step forward. She used her finger to touch the spot that Shao Tan was pointing at. "Soul, this kind of puzzle." When she saw the puzzle, she instantly put on a relaxed expression, and her tone was filled with pride. "Ah, this is the kind of question," Shao Tan answered. "You are just standing there to solve this?" Laughing Soul asked. "Yes, but now that you're here to talk to me, I've forgotten everything that I've been thinking about," Shao Tan replied. "The answer is 75. Laughing Soul said as she used her finger to trace out the two numbers on the metal. The next second, the surface of the metal sphere turned into the same color as the metal. Then, like a flower bud, it slowly opened from the top. pieces of metal folded and lined up on the sides of the tunnel and on the ground, unlocking the path before them. Furthermore, there was a piece of equipment hidden in the middle of the sphere, and it was displayed before their eyes. Xiao Tan gasped in shock. "How did you calculate so fast?" "It's nothing." Laughing Soul lifted her head to look at him. "Even the questions that I play for fun are harder than this." The puzzle earlier was actually a 9x9 Sudoku question. Furthermore, the question had given a large number of numbers, so it was relatively easy. The game menu did not require the player to fill up all the empty boxes. It only required the player to solve a few specific numbers and then find the sum. Even a third-grade primary school student would be able to solve this problem, but without the help of pen and paper or other recording tools, it might take a little more time. To put it bluntly, this was a puzzle that tested one's short-term memory, mental arithmetic, and logical deduction. It did not require additional thinking, and that was Laughing Soul's strongest suit. "Your usual pastime is so scary. Are you a mathematician?" Xiao Tan said. "I'm a liberal arts major," Laughing Soul said. "Other than that, how can there be such a young mathematician? I just graduated in 2 months. "Is that so? Why do I feel like you're the science genius type?" Xiao Tan grumbled. "That's surprising." Laughing Soul scoffed. "I think you're the one who doesn't look like a medical student. You're as cowardly as a mouse." Xiao Tan smiled and did not explain anything. He walked forward and looked at the equipment inside the metal body. "You can pick this up. What if it's bound to you after you pick it up?" "It's obvious that I won't be able to use this. If it's really bound, I'll probably sell it at the shop," Laughing Soul replied. "You're the one who picked it up." She was not wrong because the item on the ground looked like a pair of boxing gloves. If a marksmanship specialization player wore it, they would not even be able to pull the trigger, so there was no point in having it. Hearing that, Xiao Tan walked over to pick it up. Item name: Vending Machine Basher. Item type: Weapon quality: Excellent offense points. Slightly weak element: None special effect. 1% chance to cast. Hammer's persistence. Equip requirement: Level 25 or above, Fighting C or General Ability C. Remark: Have you ever had your coins swallowed by a vending machine? If you do, then you should know that a light pat or a few random punches are futile. Only a single hit can make that damned machine work as usual. P.S. Yes, I once had an ogre spit out its kidney. After Xiao Tan read it, he passed it to Laughing Soul so that she could read its attribute. Thankfully, it's not bound. This weapon doesn't suit me at all. Furthermore, I'll need to level up 8 more times before I can equip it. This pair of boxing gloves will be very powerful if used by a speed-type player, Laughing Soul suggested after reading the attributes. Laughing Soul looked at the item and suggested, "If you plan to auction it, you can set the price higher." I'll think about that after the scenario is over." Xiao Tan accepted the item and placed it inside his inventory. Then they moved out again. They entered the unlocked junction and moved down a new stone tunnel. After a few steps, Laughing Soul was suddenly reminded of something. She opened her mouth to ask, "By the way, since you don't lack game coins, why don't you give the equipment to the leader? That will be equivalent to giving him 6 digits worth of game coins. Brother Ju will definitely not accept it." Xiao Tan did not even turn his head. Be it in real life or in the game, if you give him money directly or indirectly, he will not accept it. "Ah, the twisted pride of men," Laughing Soul said with a drawl. "You can't say that. This is not just a matter of who has hurt whose pride." Xiao Tan denied Laughing Soul's words seriously. Two friends with a huge difference in economic conditions, if they want to maintain their friendship, the bottom line is to not have frequent and unequal interactions in the area of money. Or else, as time goes on, the basic trust and equality between the two will be lost. Laughing Soul looked at him and was silent for a few seconds. Then she smiled. "You sound like you're from a rich family, aren't you?" Xiao Tan hesitated before replying. I suppose so, that's right. It's nothing embarrassing. Are you afraid to admit that your family is rich? Laughing Soul said. Xiao Tan did have his concerns. Since he was young, other than the problem of friends that he mentioned earlier, there was another problem. Another problem that troubled him was his previous girlfriends either came for the money, or their attitudes changed after they found out that his family was rich. And Xiao Tan was the kind of person who, after being cheated, would still think that the other party had a conscience. If not for his two friends, Feng Bujue and Master Bao, who had been protecting him in the dark, Wang Tongji would have been the same as a spendthrift. Xiao Tan turned around to explain. Haha. Actually, it's not that bad. It's not as. Before he finished, he was interrupted. Don't worry. Laughing Soul was treating Xiao Tan like a pet. She stood on her tiptoes and patted him on the head. Even if I know your family is super rich, my attitude toward you will not change. The sadist in her eyes was exposed. Because my family is definitely richer than yours, so in my eyes, you are just a poor man. Where does that confidence come from? Is your father the richest man in the world? Xiao Tan thought, but he did not say that out loud. He only replied, This is the first time I've been called a poor man, but for some reason, it feels good. That's what it means to be cheap, Laughing Soul said. The reason her words were not blocked was probably because the system agreed with her point of view. As the two chatted, they came to a junction in front of the tunnel. From the intersection, the three paths had no distinguishing features, and it was impossible for there to be any road signs or anything like that to indicate the situation ahead. Which way? Laughing Soul asked. That should be my line, right? Xiao Tan replied. Haven't you always been the one making the decision? For such a clueless choice, I'll leave it to you to make a guess, Laughing Soul replied. If Feng Bujue was there, he would have made the same choice because those who had interacted with Xiao Tan for some time would have realized that the man was a good person then. Xiao Tan looked around with the miner's hat on his head and finally said, I'll take the middle. Chapter 2:15. When he pushed open the door of the temple, Feng Bujue expected the creaking of the wood and a rush of dust. However, the door opened surprisingly smoothly. When the two wooden axles of the door turned, there was almost no sound, as if they were still new. The scenery inside the door was also not covered in cobwebs or covered in dust. Inside the door was a temple hall. There were no other doors or rooms. The light from outside seeped in through the gaps in the windows. Players could see the scenery inside clearly even without a flashlight. There were 2 beams and 4 pillars in the room. The floor was paved with limestone brick. The walls were also made of bricks and wood. On both sides of the temple hall, there were 2 rows of copper shelves painted red. There were 4 layers to the shelves, and each layer was filled with white candles. However, none of the candles were lit. At the end of the temple hall facing the door, there was only one Buddha statue. It was a headless Buddha. The Buddha statue stood upright. The 5 fingers of its right hand were joined together. Its left hand was like its head missing. From this posture, it's hard to tell which deity it is. Feng Bujue walked forward as he muttered, "This statue made with dry paint. Is it something from the Yuan dynasty?" Suddenly, like Rain's hand pressed on Feng Bujue's shoulder and pulled him back. At that moment, black smoke rose from the ground not far in front of Feng Bujue. Earlier, Feng Bujue's attention was focused on the Buddha statue. He did not pay attention to his feet. If like Rain did not pull him back, he would have stepped on it. The black smoke rose and did not disperse. Then, a figure emerged from it. The person who appeared from the smoke was an old monk wrapped in a kasaya. He had purple skin, white beard, and black pupils. His appearance was very scary. However, his face was upright and dignified. He did not look like an evil person. "Who are you? Why have you come to the Temple of the Hidden Bell?" The demonic monk asked. We are just passers-by, Feng Bujue said. We heard that there were ghosts haunting this place, so we came to check it out. Passers-by? The demonic monk continued. This old monk can see that the two of you have awakened your spiritual senses. I'm afraid you aren't mortals, right? Your Excellency's complexion is dark purple, and your body is full of demonic qi. I'm afraid you're not even a human, right? Feng Bujue asked. Ha. Ha 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 ha. The demonic monk laughed loudly. Good, what a good, not even human. The windows in the temple were suddenly covered by a black fog, completely blocking out the light from outside. However, the darkness did not last long. In the next second, the surrounding candles were all lit up, emitting a green light. In this moment of darkness and light, the image of the demonic monk had changed greatly, completely transforming into an Asura evil spirit. His height had grown to 10 feet, and his bulging muscles stretched his clothes. His hair and beard had turned red. He glared at Feng Bujue with a ferocious expression. Seeing this, like Rain wanted to raise her sword to meet him, but Feng Bujue blocked in front of her. He tilted his head and gave her a look, as if to say, there was no need to make a move. You're the same as that tree. You were turned into a ghost by a little girl called Ling Er, right? Feng Bujue asked. So what if I am? The demonic monk's voice also changed. His voice could not be described as rough, but could only be described as rough. I just want to ask, did you voluntarily maintain this state? Feng Bujue said, or was it involuntarily under her control that you attacked us who came up the mountain? If I was under her control, would you still be able to stand and talk to me? The demonic monk asked. Then you voluntarily became a demon and harmed the common people? Feng Bujue said. The reason I became what I am today is indeed because of that child's resentment. Unless her resentment dissipates, I and all the ghosts on this mountain will be trapped in this mountain, unable to be reincarnated. The demonic monk replied, but killing you people from the town of Hidden Bell was all of our own will. Is it because the people of Hidden Bell wrongly killed Ling Er? Feng Bujue probed. Humph. The demonic monk snorted. You must be the mage they hired to get rid of the ghosts, right? Of course not. If that was the case, do you think you would still be standing here talking to me? Feng Bujue replied with great arrogance. The demonic monk was stunned. He moved his face forward. You brat, you sure talk big. I don't have time to talk nonsense with you. Hurry up and answer my question. Feng Bujue said, maybe I can help you. Just you? Ha ha. The demonic monk laughed again. Do you know why this place is called Hidden Bell? Why? Feng Bujue did not know, so he followed the man's question. The demonic monk turned around and used his thick thigh-sized arm to point at the headless Buddha behind him. This place was originally an Arhat's training ground. There is a Buddhist secret treasure hidden in the temple, the Bell of Jin Gang. He put down his arm and stared at Feng Bujue, and I am the only monk in this temple. At this point, he seemed to remember what happened in the past. On his fierce face there was a trace of fear, but now? Look at me, what have I become? Is the Bell of Jin Gang very powerful? Feng Bujue crossed his arms in front of his chest, put on a disapproving expression, and raised his head to ask. You are a reckless swindler. Of course you don't know the power of the Bell of Jin Gang. The demonic monk was fooled and began to talk non-stop. The Bell of Jin Gang is the most precious treasure of Tantric Buddhism. It can activate the power of countless spells, illusions, spirit-branded techniques, summoning techniques, puppet techniques, blessing techniques, rain techniques, healing techniques, family healing techniques, dispelling disasters. It can control ghosts and gods, and it is all-encompassing. It can even guide a person's misfortune to the realm of liberation, subdue evil spirits, transcend desires, change the fixed pattern of the 5 elements, yin and yang, and the 8 characters, and change fate. Where is that thing now? Feng Bujue did not show anything on his face, but in his heart he was thinking, the bell of Jean Gang is mine. What? You want to take the bell? The demonic monk asked. The moment this question was asked, Feng Bujue was 70 to 80% sure that this was the mission flag. He immediately turned his head and glanced at Passing Rain. The latter understood and did not reply. She just nodded gently, indicating that she agreed. Yes. Feng Bujue replied immediately. Main mission progress update. Enter the realm of the bell. Search for Bell's soul. As expected, the system notification immediately sounded, and the main mission in the game menu also changed. You said you want to help us. Let's see if you have the ability to do so. The demonic monk laughed. As he said that, he stomped on the ground with a force as powerful as a thunderbolt striking a mountain. The gray bricks on the ground instantly cracked, and a 2-meter-long crack appeared. There seemed to be a mournful wail coming from the crack, but looking down, there was only darkness. If you want the bell of Jean Gang, ask the child for it yourself. As the demonic monk said that, he stretched out his hand. In his palm, there was a bell that was exactly the same as the one given by the tree demon. Take the bell and jump down. Feng Bujue did not let Passing Rain go forward to take it. Instead, he reached out his hand and took the item, then handed it to Passing Rain. Then, he politely said to the tall monster in front of him, "Thank you for your guidance, master. Cut the crap. Many people have gone down, and no one has come back alive. The only one who came back is the bell," the demonic monk replied. Feng Bujue felt that the plot was about done. He turned back to Passing Rain and said, "Then, let's say a slogan and jump down together." "First, I reject the slogan, you jump, I jump," she answered directly. Tisk. Feng Bujue looked like his plan had been seen through. "Then I'll count to 3. Chapter 216. Atobi, who was listening to Mu Rong Yin's explanation of the martial world, and Xiao Tan and Laughing Soul, who were underground, also heard the update of the main quest. Even though the information they got from the brief description of the quest was limited, based on the keywords Realm of the Bell and Soul, it was enough for them to understand that this scenario was not as simple as a wuxiao world. This Realm of the Bell, Xiao Tan said as they walked. Could it be similar to the Realm of the Flask and the world of the Book of Heaven in the Xian Yuan Sword series? If that's the case, then this scenario has changed from a wuxiao world to a supernatural one, Laughing Soul replied. But the crocodile that we ran into earlier was already a supernatural setting, so there's nothing to be surprised about. No matter what, at least we have a clue about the main quest. Perhaps before we leave this place, Brother Ju and Sister Rain will have already cleared the scenario, Xiao Tan said. Stop dreaming. Laughing Soul poured a bucket of cold water on him. From the initial introduction, we can see that no matter what kind of setting is hidden in this scenario, the plot is related to the duel between the two assassins, but we have not found the connection yet. But as the exploration of the scenario increases, there will be clues that will lead us to that duel. Behind every duel between two powerful experts, there is a huge conspiracy, Xiao Tan said. What do you think? Laughing Soul replied. If it's a duel, the two of them could have found a random spot to decide the winner. Coming to this godforsaken town and picking a night with a full moon, it would be strange if there was no conspiracy. As they spoke, the tunnel in front of them came to an end. There was actually a dead end in front of them, and a rock wall blocked the way. No way, Laughing Soul mumbled. I still think your luck has always been quite good. Huh. Xiao Tan was startled. So, that was the reason why you wanted me to guess? What do you think? Laughing Soul said weakly. She was rather discouraged because the road from the junction to the end was quite long. It took them more than half an hour to reach this place. If they hit a wall here, it would mean that they had wasted a lot of time and stamina. From the moment they fell into the pool, Xiao Tan and Laughing Soul swam to the shore, explored, ran into monsters, turned back, fought, moved forward, and explored again. By the time they reached this place, their stamina points had been depleted by more than half. Even though they could stop and rest for as long as they wanted, Laughing Soul knew that if they wasted time there, they would pose a threat to the team. At sunset, if they did not return to the inn room according to the original plan, it would definitely affect the following actions of their teammates, which could lead to a series of unpredictable changes and risks. Therefore, their main goal was to leave this underground cave as soon as possible and safely as possible. Xiao Tan seemed to be affected by Laughing Soul's worried expression, and he started to frown as well. Perhaps this wall is similar to the metallic object from before, and it can unlock something? As he said that, he reached out to touch the wall, trying to see if there would be a system menu that would pop up in his sight. Laughing Soul sighed. Unlockable system creations are very obvious, and this is obviously a setup to seal off the road. However, before she could finish, the wall started to change. This was not the kind of thing that would provide the player with a menu, but when Xiao Tan used his hand to touch the wall, the layer of stone on the wall peeled off instantly, and a circular depression appeared in the middle of the wall. The depression was about 50 centimeters in diameter, and the inside of it was smooth and flat. Under the light, one could see the symbol of Tai Chi carved into the depression. Side quest triggered. Find the 2 stone slabs, yin and yang, to open the stone door. That works. Laughing Soul's jaw dropped. Once the quest was triggered, she understood, they would have to go back and forth at each junction. There was a stone slab on the left and right sides, and the middle was where the stone door was. That's why I say we should give it a try. Perhaps something good will happen, Xiao Tan said with a smile. Are you Mr. Nice Guy? Laughing Soul narrowed her eyes and replied, Stop showing off. We still need to go back to find the stone slabs. Objectively speaking, taking the middle path still wasted an hour of time and energy. Xiao Tan pulled on his miner's hat, walked around Laughing Soul, and headed in the opposite direction. Objectively speaking, it was you who made me guess, but in the end, sigh. Fine, I was wrong. The two of them turned back and arrived at the crossroads. This time, they chose the left path. Fortunately, the tunnel on this side did not extend very far. They only walked for 5 or 6 minutes before they arrived at a more open cave. Actually, at the junction, Laughing Soul did consider splitting up. If they each went to get a stone slab, that would save them a lot of time. However, she soon dismissed that thought, mainly because she was worried about Xiao Tan's ability to deal with problems alone. She was afraid that the kid would not return. Be careful of your surroundings, Laughing Soul reminded Xiao Tan softly from behind. After entering the cave, she was obviously more alert. Understood, Xiao Tan replied. He also knew that based on the game's usual behavior, there had to be some kind of test for the players. It was either a monster or a puzzle. As he expected, when the two walked less than 10 meters into the cave, there was a flash of light from the depths of the cave, and a strange shadow covered in flames jumped out. The shadow was impossibly fast. In just a few seconds it was not far away from the players. Then, it leaped high from the ground as if it was not affected by gravity. It jumped directly to the top of the cave and hugged an inverted stalactite hanging from the top of the cave. It looked down at the two players from a distance and let out a strange sound from its mouth. Is this guy a Digimon? Xiao Tan looked at the monster and said. At the same time, he took out his shotgun. Be careful when you shoot. Don't let it get close to you when you reload. At that moment, Laughing Soul ignored Xiao Tan's grumbling and gave him a serious order. Xiao Tan stopped joking around and focused his attention on the battle before him. The monster before them was about 1.6 meters tall and looked like an ape. Its face was like a ruby, made of crystal. Its fur was golden red, and there was a layer of flame on the surface of its body. It had a whip-like tail that curled behind it, and at the tip of the tail was a diamond-shaped red crystal. The fire ape's entrance was quite sharp. Coupled with its unique appearance, it was definitely a mini-boss level monster. Another ape cry was heard. The fire ape flashed down and moved horizontally, hiding behind a rock. From this moment onwards, the battle could be considered to have officially begun. Feng Bujue and Passing Rain each held a bell and jumped into the crack in the ground. After an unknown amount of time, the darkness in front of them finally faded away. By the time they came back to their senses, they were already standing side by side on a beautiful plain. The sun hung high in the sky and the clouds were white. Beneath their feet was green grass and the land was green. As far as the eye could see, within the misty clouds, one could see a ring of mountains and layers of cliffs that pierced the sky, as if they were a screen. Turning back to look, several hundred feet behind them, it was like the end of the world. It was a completely different scene. There were long slopes, and it was endless. Below them, the valley was sealed by fog, and the bottom could not be seen. About 10 meters to their side, there was a stone tablet. The tablet was like a small mountain, and it stood tall. 3 words were carved on it, Realm of the Bell. This is interesting. Feng Bujue looked at the tablet and smiled. The handwriting looks familiar. Changlin Town? Passing Rain asked. She did not know much about handwriting, but she could guess what Feng Bujue was referring to. That's right. Looks like there is a reason why Hidden Bell became Changlin. Feng Bujue said to Passing Rain. Suddenly, his eyes shifted, and a smile appeared on his lips. Yo, there's a beauty. Passing Rain inadvertently avoided his gaze. This is nothing. Do you think I'll be happy if you praise me without warning during a conversation? I mean her. Feng Bujue turned his head slightly, and his gaze passed over Passing Rain's shoulder. He raised his hand and pointed behind Passing Rain. Passing Rain turned to look, and she realized that on the other side of the plain, there was a woman walking slowly toward them. The woman wore a green robe, and there was a long sword by her waist. She had a graceful figure and a strong gait. Even though she was quite a distance away from the two, one could already tell from her face that she was a beauty. Humph! Passing Rain scoffed and also turned to face the newcomer. She and Feng Bujue both turned to look in the direction of the person. Even though you look like you won't be happy even if you compliment me, you don't seem that happy when you realize I didn't. Feng Bujue smiled. Do I look like such a childish person? Passing Rain replied coldly. This is not a matter of childish or not. Feng Bujue said. You should have read this in the novel, The Cat and the Detective. He paused. Women need food, water, flattery, and a pair of shoes that can go with anything. Yes, but I disagree, Passing Rain replied. Passing Rain replied, this kind of sexist, one-sided, and subjective argument has no logic at all. That's why I wrote in this month's draft. Feng Bujue said, and a man only needs a woman's approval to survive. As they chatted, the woman walked closer. She glanced at Feng Bujue and Passing Rain, and then she bowed with her fist. I am the Falling Plum Sword, Lu Qingning. I've accidentally wandered into this place. Do you know where this is? How can I return to Changlin Town? Falling Plum Sword. Passing Rain heard that and mumbled softly. She soon remembered that this was one of the 6 flowery blades. Feng Bujue said directly, Oh? You are Lin Cheng's junior sister? However, when Lu Qingning heard Lin Cheng's name, she immediately put on a hostile expression. She raised her long sword and said, Could it be that you're sent by Lin Cheng? Chapter 217. At dusk, the wind picked up and the red leaves filled the sky. On the road from Copper Hill to Changlin, a man and a horse galloped past. The man on the horse was about 40 years old. His hair was unkempt and his clothes were tattered. There was a long sword hanging from his waist. The horse was an inferior horse, and the sword was a nameless sword. But the man on the horse was a legendary swordsman. Xie eyes were tired. His messy hair fluttered in the wind, and it spoke of his undisguised dejection. But suddenly, he pulled the reins, and his tired eyes became as sharp as an eagle's. Because Xie saw someone else. In the wind, a swordsman in white stood tall. He was the first person in Chong Lin town to know that Xie had passed Copper Hill. Lin Chong. Xie recognized the person before him. It was Lin Chong, the azure blade of the 6 flowery blades. Long time no see, Xie, Lin Chong said darkly. His voice was cold, and his eyes were filled with condescension. At this moment, he was like a completely different person from the heroic and righteous hero who spoke loudly in the inn. Xie did not say anything and stepped down from the horse. He held the reins and turned the horse around. He patted the horse's back, and the horse trotted toward Copper Hill. The autumn wind blew. At that moment it was as if there were only 2 people and 2 swords left in the world. The surroundings were shrouded in a murderous aura. Lin Chang's intention was clear. The last time I saw you, I knew that the azure blade was a sword hidden in a box, Xie said darkly. You hid your strength and bided your time. Is that so? Then why do I still not see any fear in your eyes? Lin Chong asked. Because even if you show your true strength, you are still no match for me, Xie replied calmly. Ha ha ha! Lin Chong laughed, but there was no mirth in his eyes. Instead, they were twisted. Xie, you disappoint me. When he said that, he threw his sword to the ground and stood with his hands behind his back. Do you think a second-rate swordsman like you can see through my kung fu? If a third person were to hear this conversation, they would most likely think that Lin Chong had gone berserk during cultivation, causing him to lose his mind. If Xie was considered a second-rate swordsman, then 90% of the masters in the martial arts world could only be considered unrated. Wouldn't the Jianghu become a huge joke? Lin Chong, it seems like you've gone mad. Xie was as calm as ever, unmoved. A person who had reached the pinnacle of martial arts would not be easily shaken. Compared to words, he believed more in his years of hard work. In every era, a peak expert like Xie would always be lonely. That was because he couldn't find an opponent. He couldn't find someone who truly understood him. In Xie's eyes, the only person in the martial world who could understand him was Yi Qing. Other than the sword god, no one else could reach the same level as him. Therefore, no one else could make him waver. Even if there were 10 Lin Changs standing here today, it would still be the same. You'll soon understand that I'm very sober, Lin Chong replied. He paused before continuing. You came to Chong Lin to duel with the sword god. He scoffed coldly. But Yi Cheng's swordsmanship is like child's play before me. He doesn't deserve the title of sword god. At this point, Lin Cheng's murderous intent rose. Instantly, the falling leaves in the sky were unable to get close to him. If there is anyone who deserves the title of sword god in this world, it should be me, Lin Chong. Xie shook his head. Nonsense from a madman. Before he finished, he pulled out the sword, and his attack was as fast as lightning. Before the scabbard landed on the ground, many shadows filled the sky like thousands of swords floating in the air. The nameless sword left its scabbard, and the aura of the sword swept through the air. Lin Chong scoffed with condescension. Once the sword left its scabbard, there would be blood. Xie showed no mercy. In the blink of an eye, he appeared before Lin Chong and slit his throat. Lin Chong raised his right hand, and 2 of his fingers reached out to guard his neck. At that moment, his calmness caused Xie to feel a chill run down his spine. His heart was still, and his breath was still. Lin Chong casually flicked his finger and deflected the nameless sword's blade. Xie felt a wave of internal energy rush toward his right arm like a tiger, and the sword in his hand almost slipped from his grasp. He quickly channeled his internal energy to stabilize his lower body and stop the momentum. Then, using the momentum, He spun his body around and dodged to the side. You. Xie was shocked and speechless. That short exchange was enough to shatter his self-esteem and the common sense that he had built up over the years. Humph! I haven't even used my sword, and you're already so afraid. Ha ha ha! At that moment, there was an indescribable layer of darkness on Lin Chang's face. What kind of demonic kung fu do you practice? Xie forehead was covered in cold sweat, and his heart was filled with shock. Based on his personal experience, Lin Chang's casual flick of his finger just now felt like the power of a full-powered palm strike from an expert who had focused on cultivating his inner strength for more than 50 years. The dusk is thick with evil, and the fallen leaves are red like sunset. As Lin Chang recited, he reached out and caught a red leaf that was blown away by the wind between his fingers. Do you know, Xie? He lowered his head to look at the red leaf. Once upon a time, I was as narrow-minded as you people. He laughed coldly. I thought the kung fu of the one family, 2 towers, 3 sects, and 4 clans could be considered top-notch kung fu. I thought swordsmen like you and Yi Qing were the best of the best. I thought with my talent I would never be able to catch up to you. Ha ha! I was wrong. As he finished, his hand brushed the leaf away, drawing a trail of red in the air. Instantly, a wound appeared on Xie left rib, and blood sprayed out. No matter how good you are, there will always be someone better than you. You are absolutely right. Lin Chang didn't even look at Xie. Even I didn't expect that I would be able to obtain this long-lost, real ultimate kung fu. He smiled. When I first mastered the kung fu, I understood what kind of crude kung fu you people were practicing. Yi family's swordsmanship, Thousand Sunset Kung Fu, Octagon's Heart, Shaolin's 72 ultimate skills. You are all so stupid that you will mislead your students. Blood was trickling down Xie lips. Even though he was still standing, he could not move anymore. Lin Chang took slow steps toward him. You want to find Yi Qingyi to prove your swordsmanship, right? Ha ha! He chuckled darkly. Don't worry, you won't break your promise. He is waiting for you in hell. Xie eyes widened, and he stared at Lin Chang with shock. You! He was instantly reminded of what Lin Chang had said earlier. Yi Qingyi's swordsmanship is like child's play before me. Ha ha! Looks like you have understood. Indeed, Yi Qing has been killed by me. He will not come. Lin Chang continued to smile smugly as he raised his hand. Just let him be, nameless sword. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.